Today, I got scammed out of $400 by buying a faulty washing machine, with the guy who sold it to me disappearing into the darkness before I could try and get my money back. So I decided to get some revenge by wasting his time in a way he will never forget, which honestly felt incredibly good considering the fact that I just lost a lot of money on a machine that doesn't even work. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I got scammed last week by a guy on Craigslist. He sold me what I thought was like a good working washing machine. He stayed with me for the first 5 minutes to make sure it worked well enough before I paid him $400 in cash. But then it stopped halfway through the rinse cycle. Like, this thing definitely did not work. So I messaged him and I said, hey, this washer isn't working. What gives? I then look up videos and I spend 2 hours fixing it myself. Like, the machine is a total piece of garbage. And of course, I get no response from this guy in return. Now, at this point, I'm pissed off that I got scammed. But then I find more of his Craigslist postings. This guy must have like a warehouse of broken appliances waiting to scam people with. So I decided to send him an email on one of my burner email accounts asking if he can deliver 2 hunky old dryers to me. And yes, of course I'll pay extra. Well, when I say that, he responds immediately. And I tell him, hey, I'm about 40 miles away. Can he do it? With him responding back by saying, oh, absolutely. I then tell him to meet me in a parking lot at 3:00 p.m. at the peak of rush hour. Well, the next day goes by and he asks if we're still on. And I say, yeah, of course. About 2:50 in the afternoon rolls around and he says that he's almost there. I then tell him that I'm running late, and it's here that I get an email about like 20 minutes later with him saying, hey, where are you? But I respond back by saying, oh, I'm so sorry. The traffic's terrible. I'm about 20 minutes away. But fast forward and of course I'm nowhere to be found. As this guy messages me again and says, are you almost here? But I say, oh no, I'm so sorry again. I then ask him, hey, can you pull those dryers out of your car early so we can load them up faster? I'm almost there. But then another 10 minutes go by and he asks me again through email, hey, are you here yet? And let me tell you something, his messages just kept on coming in. He then sent me one last sweet note about 45 minutes later saying that he's leaving for now, saying to me, hey, thanks for wasting my time, with him heading back into sweet traffic that he has no choice but to try and drive through. So sure, I lost out on $400, but my god, it felt amazing wasting the scammer's time and pretty much ruining his afternoon. Okay, can we all just agree that Craigslist is not a good place to like get anything? Seriously guys, don't buy anything on Craigslist, like holy crap. That place is notorious for scams and pretty much all the shadiest things you could possibly expect. I'm sure at some point it was like worth your while, but nowadays I just can't imagine anybody actually doing that. Holy crap. There are way better places to sell stuff. Like if you want to get scammed, that's the place to do it. So to the original poster, hopefully you never buy anything from Craigslist again, like oh my god. But also your response to getting scammed is hilarious in my opinion. Seriously, this guy deserved it. He scammed you out of $400 and in cash no less. Like, oh my gosh, what a recipe for disaster. I would lose it if I lost $400 to this. So in my opinion, I think you should totally keep doing this. Like honestly, keep emailing this guy for more appliances. Like this guy is probably a massive scammer and this is probably how he runs his business under like a lot of different aliases. And if you're wasting this guy's time, then he's not scamming someone else, and that in my opinion is a win pretty much no matter what. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, and also check out Am I the Genius. We love those guys over there, and I think you're going to like them as well. If you'd like to submit your own stories, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit, and we would love to hear what you have to say. And I also want to give some love out to Kelsey, who basically said like, hey, I've been with the channel for about like 4 years now, and I just stumbled upon you guys. And they said one of their favorite things about the channel is seeing people get the karma they deserve. Which honestly, Kelsey, that's how I feel as well. I love watching people get exactly like the just desserts they deserve, especially when it's like really nasty stuff. So yeah, man, thank you so much for watching. And with that, let's get back to the video and on to the next story. My boyfriend woke me up at about 5 in the morning to essentially defend himself from like a situation his friends brought up in a drunken haze. And now ever since then, he's been acting weird and I just don't know what to make of it. And at this point, I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. So my boyfriend and I have been together for about 8 months, and recently he went on a trip with some of his longtime friends. Whenever they get together, they drink a lot and they usually stay up until sunrise. And I normally hang out with them too, but my grandfather had passed away the day before, so I wasn't really in the mood and I decided to just go to bed early. Well, apparently everyone got very drunk, and one of his close friends brought up something that happened years ago, and whatever she said really upset him. Well, at around 5 o'clock in the morning, he came to bed, he woke me up, and started telling me that this one lady had told a story from their past in a way that made him the villain. He kept insisting over and over again that he was not the villain, and that he completely disagreed with her version of events. But what really struck me wasn't just what he was saying, but how he was acting in that moment. His voice voice was breaking, his tone was completely unlike him, and the best way I can describe it is that he sounded almost like an upset child. I don't mean that as an insult, but it was just so out of character that it completely stood out. Then things got even stranger. He kept saying that I could ask him anything and that he would answer honestly, but at the same time, he refused to actually explain what had happened. It felt like he was saying, "Oh, if you can guess what I'm talking about, then I'll tell you," all while giving me literally almost nothing to go on. The whole interaction to me just felt very bizarre. I was tired, confused, and honestly started to get a little irritated. So I decided not to push him while he was very clearly drunk. In fact, I figured that we would talk about it once he sobered up. But the next day, though, he acted completely normal, and so did his friends. Everyone just complained about their hangovers, and no one mentioned the conversation again. I decided to let it go because I assumed it was just like drunk drama, because also I've done embarrassing things while I've been drunk before, and I hate when people bring them up later. So I treated him the way I'd want to be treated in this scenario. But ever since this trip, he's been acting very strangely whenever this particular group of friends come up. He constantly says they love gossip and they exaggerate everything, and they twist stories just to create drama. And now I'm wondering if he panicked because this lady brought up whatever happened while they were sitting right outside the bedroom where I was sleeping. And part of me wonders whether he woke me up to see if I'd overheard anything while also trying to frame himself as the victim just in case I had. I can't help but wonder whether he's been trying to discredit his friends in case one of them tells me what actually happened. I know that's a pretty big leap and maybe I'm overthinking all of this, but the whole situation felt so odd that I just haven't been able to shake it. So am I being paranoid here? Does this sound like something worth asking him about? And if so, how would you even begin to bring this up? Because right now I don't really know what to do. Okay, dude, this is one giant red flag after another because seriously, waking someone up at 5 in the morning to defend a story that no one questioned is incredibly unusual. So in my opinion, I think there's definitely something going on with this story that's haunting him or something like that. Because seriously, why would he act like this? Because sure, he was probably drunk, but I think there might have been some truth in this scenario. And I think you're on the right track by being oh yeah, he seems like he's trying to cover his tracks. So for me, I would probably sit him down one day when no one else is around and I would be look, it's just you and me. Just tell me what's going on here. Because the only thing I can think of is that maybe he cheated on you or something like that, even though there's no evidence to suggest that. But what else could he be so worried that you might find out about? I don't know. It just seems really sketchy and I just think you really need to get to the bottom of this. And I know if I was in your shoes, that's exactly what I would do. Am I the jerk for refusing to follow my friend's parents' house rules and just leaving their house entirely? Because after they tried to force me and my girlfriend to sleep in separate rooms when we were at their beach house, we pretty much decided to get our own hotel and do our own thing, causing my friend's parents to lose their mind as they were pissed off that we didn't appreciate their hospitality. And now I don't know what to do, and honestly, I'm really annoyed by this. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been together since high school, which means it's almost 6 years in total. We just moved in together after I graduated in May, and we're not officially engaged yet, but we're planning to get married once he finishes grad school. An old friend from high school invited us to his family's beach house for the holiday last weekend, and when we got there Friday, we realized his mom and dad were spending the weekend too, which is fine. I mean, it's their house and they seem to have their own plans for the weekend too. In fact, they were happy to let us do our own thing during the days, and they had drinks in the hot tub with us Friday evening, and they were actually really cool. But that night, when my boyfriend and I started getting ready for bed, our friend's mom pulled me aside and said that my boyfriend would need to sleep on the couch in the living room instead of with me in the guest room because we aren't married. Now, I was surprised because our friend had not mentioned any of this to us, and my boyfriend and I lived together and everything. I said okay, but honestly, I felt really uncomfortable. For reference, I have trouble sleeping in new places, and sleeping next to my boyfriend really helps. My boyfriend also was annoyed that he had to sleep on an uncomfortable couch when there's a perfectly good bed right there for him to use. So we decided that it would be best just to get a hotel in town and meet up with our friends the next morning. When we told our friend, he was kind of weird about it, but eventually said okay. So we left and just checked into our hotel. But the next morning, we called to see what time our friend wanted to meet up, and when we called him, he seemed mad, saying to us that he couldn't hang out, and that apparently his mom and dad flipped out at him for letting us go to a hotel and said that we didn't appreciate their hospitality. So we ended up just doing our own thing for the weekend and not seeing our friend at all. In fact, our friend texted us today on Monday saying that he was really angry that we couldn't have just slept apart for 2 nights just to make his parents happy. And on top of that, he said that we're not going to be invited to a friend's Thanksgiving Thanksgiving dinner this year. So seriously, are we the jerks for leaving and getting our own place? Because I just don't know what to make of this. Okay, if this is not a giant red flag for this guy always being controlled by his parents, then I don't know what will be. Because what are you talking about? I do not need to make your parents happy. That is not my responsibility. And guess what? I don't have to listen to them. Sure, you can have your own house rules and like that's completely fine, but I also have the right to like get a hotel if I want to and just completely blow you people off. And why would they get mad at that? Like, what are you talking about? If anything, it kind of seems like they're mad because, oh, we don't have control over the situation anymore. You're not allowed to see them, adult son who's also staying at this beach house. Like, what is going on? That's so weird to me. That is incredibly strange. Like, I just can't get over the fact that he's like, wow, you should have just made my parents happy. That would have made my life a lot better. I can't believe you. Like, good Lord, dude, are you that much of a people pleaser? Like, you really can't just let go of what your parents think and just do your own thing? Because let me tell you something, if I was in that house, I would have happily been like, oh yeah, I'll stay in this room. And then as soon as everyone goes back to sleep, I'm sneaking back into that room and I'm sleeping in the same bed as my girlfriend. Like, I don't care. I dare you to try and make me move. I'm gonna happily do that, and then I'm gonna get a hotel the next day. Maybe I'm petty. Like, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but holy crap. I'm an adult. You can't tell me what to do like that. So no, your friend is a complete wimp. Like, what a loser, dude. He's trying to appeal to his parents still. Are you kidding me? That is just really sad and kind of cringeworthy in my opinion. And that would be more than enough reason for me to cut this guy off and not be his friend any longer. My toxic ex-boss begs me to leave a good company review after I quit. So I decided to maliciously comply by giving him exactly what he asked for, as I left him one of the worst scathing 1-star reviews he could have possibly asked for, which essentially tanked his online rating and made his life very miserable at his job. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I recently quit my job as a specialist at a small planning and design firm somewhere in Germany. And let me tell you something, this place was a mess. The pay was a joke, the leadership was constantly unpredictable, and they expected me to do the job of a fully qualified project manager without the pay or the support. And seriously, the turnover was crazy. 3 of my colleagues quit around the same time, and during my 4 years there, my boss went through 5 different assistants. Eventually though, I packed my bags and I moved to a different city for a fresh start. Well, a week after my last day, my former boss texted me. He casually asked me to please leave a review for the firm on a popular job review site, and he genuinely thought that we parted on good terms and assumed that I would drop a 5-star rating just to boost their crappy score. But you know what? I just rolled my eyes and ghosted him because screw that guy. Well, fast forward to a few days ago and I checked the company's page and I saw 3 brand new 4.5-star reviews, all of which posted in the same week. They were so obviously fake by management, it's not even funny. They all use the exact same buzzwords of, oh, it's a great work-life balance, there's amazing health benefits, which in reality was just 15 minutes of stretching on Wednesdays. And magically, these reviews praised all the exact things that people usually complained about. So at this point, I remembered his text, and I thought to myself, oh, you wanted a review? Okay, fine, I'll go ahead and comply. I then sat down and I wrote a brutally honest, mathematically precise review. I kept it completely professional and entirely subjective, so they literally couldn't legally sue me to take it down. I gave them 1 and 2 stars in almost every single category, explicitly mentioning the lack of support, the horrible communication, and the heavy workload. But I didn't stop there. While I was at it, I contacted the platform's support team, and I reported the 3 brand new fake reviews for manipulation, pointing out the identical wording and the fact that they were posted at the exact same time. Well, less than 4 hours later, 2 of the 3 fake reviews were completely destroyed by the platform. The automatic spam filter probably caught them, because my boss was dumb enough to write them from the same office and IP address. With this fake review gone and my honest 1-star review dragging the entire average down even further, panic mode finally set in. Now, how do I know this? Well, that's because my former boss texted me. This time, the message was full of typos, desperately asking if I could please just leave a good review to help them out. Like, this guy has absolutely no idea that I'm the one who tanked his ratings and reported his fakes. But I just left him on red again. The cherry on top of this is that a buddy of mine who still works there texted me yesterday. He said my review perfectly hit the nail on the head. He also mentioned that since the review dropped, management has suddenly been acting super nice and accommodating to everyone, simply out of pure fear that more people will quit, which to me makes this entire situation incredibly worth it. Oh man, I love this, dude. I don't know if anyone else has run into this before where yeah, you work at a job where they're obsessed with online reviews, especially on their Google page where it's you need to give a good review. You need to ask customers and patients for good reviews. And it's dude, what are we talking about? I should not have to do that as part of my job. I've even got some friends who most of their job hinges on whether or not they get good reviews. And that is crazy to me. So instead of me doing my job, you're just more obsessed with making the customer customer happy and making sure they give a positive review online. Never mind the fact that I'm doing all this other stuff to like make the job function. Like, I can't stand when corporations do this extra stuff where they're just like, oh, we need good reviews. That's the most important thing. And it's like, dude, why don't you hire someone for that? Why am I being expected to do that when it's like that really should not be a part of my job? So your ex-boss coming to you and being like, please leave a good review. We need it. That is obnoxious. In my opinion, that's in the same vein as this. And I would absolutely return the favor, especially if they were toxic like this. Because in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, so leave a comment, like let me know if I'm out of pocket for this one, but if you have to beg for good reviews from customers or like former employees or anything like that, chances are that place probably sucks. Like, it probably is not that good. You're probably the reason it's falling apart. And this whole like cyber begging for good reviews is just not helping anybody. But seriously, let me know down in the comments, like, have you ever run into something like this? Let me know down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for not giving back a concert ticket after my friend basically decided that the other person we were bringing along with us shouldn't be invited any longer because of some weird tension they're going through? And honestly, this whole situation has got me in such a weird like scenario where I truly don't want to be in the middle of this, but somehow I am. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's kind of what's going on. Okay, to start things off, my friend is mad at me and I just don't know if I'm being stubborn or if she's being ridiculous. A few months ago, she told our group chat that this small band we all used to listen to in college was doing a reunion show. This is not a huge band or anything like that, but it's one of those random bands that meant a lot during a certain part of my life. She sent the link and said, oh, someone should buy these tickets before they sell out. And after nobody answered for like 20 minutes, I just went ahead and bought 3 tickets. I bought one for me, one for her, and one for our other friend. And they were really not expensive, like maybe $38 each after fees. She paid me back the next day, and the other friend forgot for a while, but eventually they paid too. And in this case, I just kept the tickets in my account because I was the one who bought them. Now, the show is next week, and my friend just told me she does not want the other friend going anymore because of some like weird tension between them. Then she said that since she was the one who found the show, she should get to decide who goes and that I should transfer the other ticket to her so she can invite someone else instead. But I said, no, I'm not doing that. The other friend already paid for it, so it's their ticket. My friend then said, oh, you're taking sides, saying that she only told us about the show because she wanted it to be our thing. But I told her that if it was that personal, she should have just bought the ticket herself instead of dropping the link in a group chat like a weather alert. She then said that she might not go if the other friend goes, and I just said, okay. I mean, I can send her ticket back and she can sell it or whatever. But now she is saying that I ruined the whole night and I made it about money. But I really did not. I do good on that part, and I'm not stingy, but I'm not about to like pay the other friend back out of my own pocket just because the rules changed a week before the show. The awkward part is that the other friend doesn't even know about any of this yet. They still think we're all going together. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to give my friend control over this extra ticket? Because right now, I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, seriously, I gotta be honest. First off, some people could be so incredibly petty. Like, dude, what are we talking about? If you have plans with another friend to go do some kind of event, that's probably your cue to stay on good terms with them. I'm talking like a vacation, a trip of some kind, or like a concert. Like, dude, at least have the decency of staying on good terms with them, because otherwise crap like this is gonna happen. And this is not the original poster's fault. Like, they're literally just trying to come in clutch and get tickets for everybody. But your other friend, like, dude, they are so toxic. If anything, I would be like, you know what? Here's your money back. You're not going. Because what do you mean? You don't get to dictate who can and can't go. If this other friend still wants to go, well then congratulations. They can still go to this concert and stand on like the other side of the venue. Like, she's not a bouncer at this place. She's not gonna be like, oh no, you can't come in. I'm not letting you. Like, shut up. No, you're not gonna be doing that. That's so weird. So no, you're not the jerk and you're not picking sides. Like, this lady's an idiot. If she's got problems with this other friend, then screw it. She can deal with that on her own. That is not your problem, and you should not have to change a single thing just to make them happy. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for a trip that I was literally tricked to be on? Because right now I'm very pissed off and my friends are kind of yelling at me about this. And at this point, I don't know what the right answer is and I just don't know what to do. Okay, let me start from the beginning here because this is a weird one. One of my close friends is getting married, and so a bunch of the guys have been trying to organize a bachelor's trip for him. The problem though is that they hadn't really figured out where it was going to happen even 3 weeks before the trip. Well, eventually they finally decided where, but they had planned it so that the majority of the trip is on a weekday, and they did this because this would be convenient for them. But guess what? This is incredibly inconvenient for me, as this is like the busiest month of work for me. So I straight up told them like, hey guys, I'm not going to this. Well, one day the bachelor calls me and tells me that he really wants me to come along. But I told him, hey, this trip is planned terribly, and it's really going to cause issues if I take leaves. He then informs me that he had already booked the flight for me to come with them. And this really pissed me off because he didn't even consider my situation or even take no for an answer and just kind of like forced me into it. But since he really wanted me there and it was coming from a place of care, I just let it go. Well, a week before the trip, all of us are on a video call and I mentioned this forced trip and he just laughs at me and says, well, actually, I hadn't even booked the flight until after the call with you. I just told you that so that you would come on the trip. And dude, I gotta be honest, this was really upsetting. And it just made every other stress of the week completely worse. It was set up between the most busiest work week of the year, with a lot of travel involved, and he took advantage of my compassion for him just to make me come on this stupid trip. On top of that, he booked a 6 o'clock in the morning flight, which means that I have to leave the house by like 4:30 in the morning. I only reached home from a work trip by like 10:30 the previous night, and he then calls me at 11 to bring him food from a specific place to the airport. I don't get any cabs until I'm running 20 minutes late, and right as I reach the airport, the flight door closes, and I have to book a flight for like 12 p.m. later in the day just to get to the place. And at this point, I'm very pissed off, and eventually we have an argument and he apologized afterwards. But when we're going back home, I see that he's asked me to pay for the flight that I missed, which he lied to me to get me to come on in the first place. But you know what? I refused to pay. I just said, hey, I'll pay for the flight back, and I already paid for the 12 p.m. flight, so I literally don't even see a reason why I'd have to pay for this one. I've been ranting about this to everybody, but most people, including my friends and my parents, have been saying that I'm making way too much of a big deal out of this. The only person who seems to understand how much it bothers me, though, is literally my partner, even though she says she wouldn't be as bothered by this if it was a close friend of hers. I am seriously confused because I feel justified in my feelings and actions, but others seem to think that I'm taking things too far. So am I the jerk here because I just don't know what to do anymore? Okay, bro, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. You need to find better friends because this is obnoxious. Seriously, if someone tricked me into like getting on a flight and like joining them for some kind of like get together, regardless of what the occasion is, I would be very pissed off and I would immediately cut them out of my life. Like, bro, personally, I really take travel seriously and I like to know all the details of what's going on. So if something's rushed or if someone's like tricking me or trying to like coerce me into doing something I don't want to do, that's where I shut down and I'm like, nope, I don't want anything to do with this. Absolutely not. Because that is super inappropriate and very unfair for you. So no, you're not the jerk. Like, these people suck. I wouldn't pay a dime and I would start looking for better friends because this is obnoxious and I would hate to deal with this. My entitled aunt and uncle freak out when my parents say they're going to buy him a tablet to use for university, claiming that it would be a massive waste of money and that my brother would never use it for its intended purpose. And after dealing with this level of scrutiny and judgment, my family was utterly blown away when we found out that my uncle and aunt had not one but 2 iPads in their possession, resulting in my mother shutting them down in a glorious fashion. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in 2011. My uncle, who's my mom's brother, and his wife were always the kind of people who would complain about anything that people would do with their life. And back in 2011, my brother was graduating high school and was about to start university. By that time, my parents were deciding if they should buy him an iPad so he wouldn't have to carry heavy books around, or if he needed to take pictures of the board, maybe he could use the iPad and browse the information while studying, or he could use the iPad instead of a computer. So basically, he was going to use the iPad as some kind of big library for his studies. My dad at the time told my uncle about his predicament because he had never used an iPad while he studied, and he didn't want to waste a couple $100 just for it to be treated like a toy, or for it to not even be used at all. My uncle and aunt immediately flipped over and started saying that buying an iPad or any kind of tablet was a waste of money, and that my brother wouldn't even use it. Well, my brother was upset. He wanted his iPad. He thought that carrying an iPad and a notebook around was better than carrying a bunch of books, a calculator, many notebooks, and sometimes a laptop around. Anyways, a couple of months passed and we are in November. My brother started university in September, and if this is relevant, in my country, unless the university is in another state, people usually stay with their parents while they study. In November, we went to my uncle and aunt's apartment to celebrate my cousin's birthday, and at that moment, it was her second birthday. My cousin is about to get fussy until my uncle gets a tablet out of nowhere and gives it to her. My dad asked my uncle why he gave a tablet to a baby, and my uncle says he discovered that with a tablet, my cousin doesn't get fussy while on planes. Now, we are talking and stuff, and my aunt decided to take pictures pictures. But she then takes out another tablet, and my mother asked her about the old digital camera, with my aunt just saying that it was old and she needed something new. Now, that day, none of us said a thing. We just went back to our houses after celebrating that birthday and didn't say anything. But the next day, my dad took my brother to get his iPad. Now, my brother did use his iPad for university, and he only had like 1 or 2 games on it, but it mostly had books for engineering and related apps. Fast forward, and on Christmas, we had dinner at my parents' house as always. At the moment my brother took his iPad out, my aunt and uncle went crazy, stating that my dad just wasted money and that my brother would just use it to play games. Well, my mom looked at him dead in the eye and said to him, "Oh, just like your 2-year-old daughter?" And when she said that, they went silent. They then tried to badmouth my brother's iPad every chance they could. But thankfully, my parents learned to not take my uncle seriously ever again. Wow, these people are literally the definition of being a hypocrite. Not only do they try to convince your parents to not buy your brother an iPad, but they also turn around and turn their kid into an iPad kid. And that's like so ironic to me, it's not even funny. You mean they really want to judge your brother for having an iPad for college, only to then turn around and buy not 1 but 2 iPads so that they can take pictures and have something for their kid to entertain them? Not to mention the fact that they seriously tried to make a fuss about this at Christmas. It's like, seriously, what is wrong with people? So they're willing to make their iPad a substitute parent, but your brother's not allowed to have it because he's just going to use it for games? Like, seriously, that's just so weird to me. So good for your mom and dad for putting them in their place, because your aunt and uncle were being incredibly entitled, and there is no reason that they should have acted like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled mom demands that she can track my phone through an application. Also, she can help me out in case of emergencies. But since I know my mom and how this won't ever be used for emergencies, I'm hesitant to ever give my information out like that. But I'm now at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I have a very overprotective mother. I also travel a lot for work. Well, my job had me coming into town, so my mom could see me. I had a meeting after at the time I said I was done, and I texted her. She kept calling me during the whole meeting, despite me sending a message that I couldn't talk because I was in a meeting. When I'm finally done and about to call her, another coworker tells me that my mom is looking for me. She had came down to the place I was working, wandering the outside looking for me. When I called her, she said she was in tears and worried over me. The next day, she asked if she could install an app to track my cell phone, but I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with that and had hoped that she would leave it, but she kept pushing it until I said no. She keeps trying to coax me into it, getting into claiming that it would be used for emergencies. I said that was a slippery slope and I know her, and it's going to reach a point where just emergencies turn into full-blown tracking my every single movement. She argued that she's getting better at not being so protective because she's going to therapy, so I told her, how about you ask your therapist what they think about her tracking me? Well, at this point, she keeps bringing it up and I'm honestly growing tired. I'm wondering if I should just give in and put an end to this annoyance, but at the same time, I feel like that's enabling her. So I'm honestly at such a loss and I seriously now don't know what to do. Yeah, your mom's being super obnoxious. She wants to track you all because she couldn't find you that one day. Meanwhile, you're a 28-year-old woman who literally works for a living. Not to mention that she showed up at your place of employment. Like, that is so weird to me, it's not even funny. It is super inappropriate and it makes you look incredibly unprofessional. So I know if I was in your shoes, no matter what my mom would say, there's no way I would allow her to track me on my phone. That's a massive invasion of privacy, and as an adult, there's just no need for that. And I think, in my opinion, if you did give into that, this persistent annoyance would only continue to get worse. And I just don't think you deserve that kind of treatment. I'm moving out with my girlfriend against my parents' wishes. And even though they've expressed their displeasure of me moving out and possibly moving to Canada, I'm deciding to go ahead and move out for 3 months anyways. But I'm honestly so stressed out about ruining my relationship with my parents that I'm seriously unsure of what to do next. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, I'm a 24-year-old male, and I'm an Australian-born Chinese only child, with my parents being Chinese immigrants themselves. I've been with my girlfriend for 6 months now, and we love each other so much. Recently, I've been having troubles with my girlfriend because of the problems that I have with my relationship with my parents. My girlfriend is originally from Canada, but she came here to Sydney to study, and she is staying here to study for the next 3 years. She says that she might consider moving back to Canada if she cannot sustain living here, since since she has more opportunities for her there, and I was pretty willing to move there with her after 3 years if things still went well. However, my Asian parents both expressed their disapproval of me immigrating to Canada. They said they were tolerant of other things, but this was the only thing they didn't want me to do. I discussed options for them, but they wouldn't budge on it. So when I told my girlfriend about it, she felt upset since she thinks I choose them over her. This problem led to her being more distant from me, and I could see that she was disappointed about it. However, I am willing to move out with her, but even then, I still feel slight guilt about leaving my parents behind. They told me one of the main reasons they didn't want me to move out was because they would have no one to take care of them if they had any illness or injuries as they got older. They've also said things like, "We've raised you for 24 years and now you want to leave after everything we've done for you and we've taken care of you," and all this other stuff. But fast forward to today, and I'm now planning on moving out with my girlfriend to her place in Sydney for a little bit, and this is going to be for at least 3 months. I will be moving my stuff over quietly overnight and plan to leave on Monday and stay over at hers. I will leave a note behind saying that I am moving out and to only contact me if there is an emergency. But a part of me still feels that guilt of leaving them behind right now. They've still been taking care of me, well, more so my mom, who always treats me well even to this day. She would ask me what's wrong and give her advice on things as well. I want to know if anyone else has ever faced something similar to this and what exactly I should be doing here. Am I doing the right thing here? Or are there other options that I can possibly consider? I love my girlfriend so much, but my relationship with my parents has been affecting ours too much. I just feel guilt over leaving my parents, and I guess mostly for my mom, since she's been so caring to me all the way up until this day. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, the first thing I would really want to know is if I really like this girl or not. Like, you're talking about not only moving to another country, but literally moving to another hemisphere to be with this lady. Like, do you really like this woman? Because if you don't really like her, moving out like that would probably be a really bad idea. I'm not saying don't do it, I just think you need to be really careful, because things could be so much different the second you move in together. So it is kind of nice to see that you're going to spend 3 months together in Sydney and at least have some kind of trial run of you guys living together and experiencing each other's company in like a full-time manner. Now, when it comes to your family being upset that you're going to be moving out, I mean, honestly, what were they expecting? Were they expecting you to live at home for the rest of your life and stay around them all the time forever? Like, that just doesn't seem reasonable in my opinion. But I think your parents' concerns about your girlfriend are also valid. You've only known her for 6 months, and for you to suddenly move out and go to Canada, that's like a big step. So in my opinion, I think you just need to be careful regardless of what you do, because this is a big step no matter what, and I think you at least owe it to yourself to carefully consider your options moving forward. Am I the jerk for not forcing my family to share their inheritance with my children? Because right now, they're upset, as well as my ex-wife, who's also upset. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I have 2 kids. I have a 14-year-old male and a 16-year-old female. And I also have an ex by the name of Tammy. Tammy is not her real name. According to the divorce decree, neither one of us can take the kids out of state without prior written consent from the other. Now, this was fine for the most part, as neither Tammy or I had any desire to go through any more hassle of co-parenting than we already do. However, my father recently passed away. It wasn't a shock because he was sick for a long time, so while I was sad he was gone, I was also relieved he wasn't suffering anymore. About 50 years ago, my father came to America, got an education, and made something of himself, but always missed his home country. When it was determined that there was nothing more that could have been done for him, my father wanted to spend his last year in his home country. My sister happily obliged my father's wishes and quit her job to go with him and help with his care. My brother, my other sister, and I would also take at least one trip over to see him. Then the holidays came around, and my father really wanted to see all of his grandchildren together one last time. My brother and other sister were able to bring their kids over, but when I brought this up to Tammy, which was 3 months ago by the way, she said she'd have to think about it. I gave her as much time as I could, but flights overseas during the holidays were expensive, so when I asked her again, Tammy said she needed more time. I asked how much more time did she actually need, and that led to a fight, and Tammy ended up saying that she wouldn't agree. She also got to my kids and said that they didn't want to go either, citing that they don't speak the language and how they shouldn't have to be inconvenienced just because their grandfather decided to leave the country. Now, I was upset, but I let it go, and I could tell my dad was a little hurt that the kids didn't come. He tried to video chat them twice, but got no response. We had one final dinner dinner together where my dad made a speech about how grateful he was for his family and discussed his will. Aside from my sister who took care of him, the majority of his financial estate would go to his grandkids, and he would be leaving the rest of us sentimental things, which we were all really cool with. He passed a few weeks later, and at the reading of the will, my brother and other sister's kids got a decent size of the trust fund, whereas my kids weren't mentioned at all. I did bring this up once, and my sister said that our dad really was hurt, that he wasn't worth a video call in his final moments, and only opted to leave them sentimental things. When my kids found out, they were furious, and Tammy demanded that I sue my sister or my nieces and nephews, but I refused. My kids see this as me putting someone else before them, as well as punishing them for not agreeing to go, but I don't see it that way at all. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like literally what he puts in his will is completely up to your dad. You have no control over that, and he could have done that for literally anybody. Also, the only reason Tammy's getting upset about this is because she doesn't have the chance to try and mooch off of her family. Like she only wanted her kids to get some of that money because she wanted to try and take that for herself. Like Tammy has some very jaded motivations in my opinion, and there's no way I would trust her disagreement in the slightest. So no, of course you're not the jerk here. Tammy's being weird and your kids are kind of reaping what they sow, because the least they could have done was at least go for some kind of video chat, because that really would have been the bare minimum, and if they're unhappy with that, then that honestly is their own fault. My boyfriend wants me to move in with him, but I honestly don't want to, especially considering that his dad would also still be living there, and he is incredibly obnoxious and very strict with his house rules, and now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for 2 years now, and we have started discussing moving in together. I want to save money and buy a house in the next 1 to 2 years. However, he wants to buy his house that he and his dad live in and flip the house. So he has no plan of moving out of his childhood home anytime soon. For reference, his dad has a heart condition that limits his ability and is likely going to pass away in the future. He's doing just fine now with regular medication and doctor's visits, but he is limited in his abilities. The house has $60,000 left, and it's paid off plus around $15,000 in back taxes his dad has. My issue isn't that he wants to buy his house, but it's that I don't want to live with his dad, as I find it incredibly weird, and that I would have to tiptoe around him in the house. His dad is a big-time hoarder and very super strict about throwing stuff away or how the house stuff is used at all. Let me just give you some examples to try and illustrate this. If I throw away, let's say, a paper towel in the recycling bin, he will come tell me that it's not on the list and I need to check with him before throwing stuff away. Or I used a regular pan to cook onions and he freaked out because that pan is only used for eggs. He has also had an issue with the fact that I use too much toilet paper, for crying out loud. This past summer, I tried helping clean up the yard because my boyfriend works too much and his dad's heart condition doesn't allow him to do any yard work. So I started cleaning up the yard. His dad gave me the tools to do it, and so I took out a wild berry bush that was infested in the planter. Well, his dad lost his mind because I took out the berries in the plant. I have explained to my boyfriend that I do not want to move into the house with his dad living there, and he just thinks that I just need to respect his dad's wishes and all will be fine. Now, respect is one thing I can understand, but his demands are entirely unreasonable. He has no interest in moving out, and I don't want to live separately for our entire relationship. So I honestly feel so stuck, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, that is an environment I would not want to live in at all. Like, your boyfriend is basically being like, oh, come on, move in with us. You only have to listen to my adult father all the time. For reference, both of these people are 23 and 22 years old, and in my opinion, that's definitely old enough to make your own decisions. Like, I don't know about you, but as an adult, I don't like getting bossed around by another adult. And I can guarantee you, if you moved into that house with your boyfriend and his dad, there's no way you would ever have any kind of freedom. It also doesn't help that this guy's like a massive hoarder. He saves things and keeps it off to the side pretty much all the time, and that in and of itself would be incredibly obnoxious. So no, I don't blame you for not wanting to move in with him, because what you're describing, in my opinion, sounds incredibly obnoxious. Am I the jerk for telling my dad I'm pregnant without my stepmom also being present? Because right now she is very upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, my mom passed away unexpectedly when I was 20 years old. I lived with my dad and I helped him through everything until I was 26 years old. Him and I grew very close in this time, and this is also when he met my now stepmother. They married 6 months after they met, and me and my siblings were not happy about it. We were all very close at the time and advised my dad to just wait. He simply stated that they were older, with the both of them being in their late 50s, and they knew what they wanted. He stated that we would have time to get to know her more after they got married. Now, let me preface this by saying that I don't hate my stepmother. She can be very sweet and thoughtful, and my dad is very happy. However, she has always had this expectation that we would all have this amazing relationship with her, and that we would be best friends. She really likes to give advice freely to everybody, and she does this quite often. I know my siblings feel the same way, and she and my dad always say they don't expect me to treat her like my mom, or have that kind of relationship, but I feel like they do actually expect that. I'm now 29 years old, and I'm married, and my dad and her have been together for a little over 4 years. A couple of months ago, my dad sat me down and told me all the ways that I had recently offended my stepmom by comments that I've made or things I sent to her on social media. Now, for reference, this isn't the first time that this has happened, and also, I've only sent stuff to her on social media that I thought was funny. They weren't meant to target her or anything like that. Apparently though, for months, she has just been keeping a checklist of everything I have done that has ever made her upset in the slightest. Now, instead of her talking to me directly about it, my dad came to me to have this discussion. I told him I never wanted to be offensive or hurt her feelings, and that the videos that I sent were just jokes. And apparently, this has been happening with my sister as well. All my siblings now feel a strain in their relationships with my dad. Well, fast forward and I find out that I'm pregnant. We were going to wait to tell my dad, but I was too excited. So one day when he came over unexpectedly, I just told him right there on the spot. My husband wasn't there, but he really wasn't that upset about it at all. I will admit I did kind of want the opportunity to tell my dad without my stepmom present, because she can be really overbearing and give all the advice she has. She really has a tendency to take over the conversations. But again, I hadn't really planned on telling him that day. Well, my dad's reaction was very unenthusiastic. It's going to be his first grandchild, so I thought he would maybe be a little bit more excited. I told him he can't tell anyone yet, and he said he wanted to tell his wife, and I said that wasn't a problem for me. That night, she called and congratulated my husband and I. Well, a couple days later, I get a call from my dad telling me how offended his wife was because she was not included in being told. Then he said to me, "Well, wouldn't you want your mom to know?" And when he said that, I absolutely lost it. We eventually ended the conversation with me telling him that she needs to talk to me directly if she's got a problem. I reached out to her saying that I didn't mean to upset her and that we should talk, and she just hasn't replied. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your stepmom is being really petty and only goes through your father to try and resolve any supposed issues. And these really are supposed issues. It seems like she's cherry picking any problem she has with you while also refusing to talk to you like an adult. And the fact that your dad and stepmom would expect you to treat your stepmother like some kind of actual mother figure in your life, in my opinion, is incredibly rude and very intrusive. That lady is not your mom. Your mom passed away when you were 20 years old. This isn't a scenario where you grew up suddenly with a stepmom at the age of 6 years old. Your dad literally remarried later in life when you're definitely an established adult. So it's completely unreasonable for anyone to be like, yeah, that's your mom now, you gotta treat her as such. So no, with all things considered, you are definitely not the jerk. The stepmom seems incredibly petty, and if I was in your shoes, I would not want to deal with that in the slightest. My entitled mother, who I went no contact with, suddenly shows up to my private birthday party, demanding that I come home to her and leave my grandmother, despite the fact that she surrendered legal custody of me over to my grandma. And I'm honestly still shaken up by the way she acted, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm gonna need to give some backstory because there's a lot to take in. For starters, I was parentified and forced to devote 99% of my free time to my younger brother. I then got fed up and ran to my grandmother, and my parents eventually surrendered legal custody of me over to her. There's a lot more I could talk about, but this is essentially the basics. But to jump to the present day, things have been going smoothly. I'm doing well in school, and I'm taking some extracurriculars such as robotics and the debate team, and I still have time to read and hang out with friends. I have started to communicate with my dad as well. Never in person, but it's just over the phone, and this was my decision. And it's mostly just small talk. I talk about school and classes, and he gives me updates on my little brother, who we will call Matt. Matt is not his real name. Now, it's important to note, I've not said a word to my mother directly since the day custody was given to my grandmother. The last time we spoke, my dad told me that Matt had finally realized that I was no longer around and became more agitated. They hired a nanny to help out, but both my parents were still forced to cut back their hours, and that was about a week and a half ago. Well, this past Saturday, yesterday, I had my dream birthday party, which was themed after books. My birthday cake looked like a stack of books, snacks were themed after literary genres, and everyone came dressed as a book character. I came in dressed as Sherlock Holmes. We had a very cozy venue all to ourselves, and it was great. It was a very chill and very relaxed party. My grandmother hired security for the party with a strict list of who was allowed. This was due to a couple of bullies at school who heard about my party and threatened to crash it. The party ended after a few hours, and most of the guests left. The ones left were my grandmother, myself, one of the guards, and my two closest friends. I excused myself to go to the restroom, and when I came out, one of my friends met me halfway down the hall. She tried to push me back into the restroom, saying my mother had shown up and was demanding to see me. Now, here's the thing. I told nobody from my family about this party. Not my dad, not even the family members who supported me. And this is because of this exact possibility. I also didn't post about it on social media. I heard yelling from my grandmother and decided to confront the situation myself. The security guard was holding my mother back, and my grandmother was livid. The second my mother saw me, she became irate, screaming that I was a disgrace, that she was never going to let me just cut her off, and if I knew what was good for me, I would come home. But here's the thing. I didn't feel scared or even angry. I was just tired. So I kind of let out a sigh. I pulled out my phone and told her I was calling the police. It was up to her if she stayed to face them, but either way, I was filing a no contact order. Well, when I said that, she went pale. She screamed at me one last time and then ran off. She then got into her car and then sped away. I was glad it didn't happen during the party, but it kind of left me shaken. Needless to say, my grandmother and I will be speaking to our attorney tomorrow. I'm still not sure how she found out about the party, which is what spooks me the absolute most. I mean, do entitled parents like her just have some ability that lets them repeatedly attempt to screw up their kids' lives? I'm starting to feel like I'll have to watch out for my mom for the rest of my life, and I'm honestly so sick of it, and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, that really is awful. And it really does sound like the mom in this situation is a massive piece of garbage. From what the original poster has described and went on to explain, this lady is completely obnoxious, and it was very necessary for her to separate from this mom, which is altogether just really sad. Like, the original poster in this scenario probably would have wanted, in some kind of alternate universe, to have their parents involved in this fun party, but because of their past of being absolutely awful, as well as straight up neglecting the original poster, it simply made it impossible for them to ever be involved in this person's life. So honestly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry this happened, and I totally understand where you're coming from, because I would have been creeped out as well if my family member who I intentionally don't want to talk to somehow found out about my private party, and the fact that she showed up and yelled at you is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to cover my scar and wearing a bikini as it triggered my friend? Because right now she's upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I had a cancer scare a few years back and had a biopsy done on my upper leg. The scar has now faded, but it is still fairly noticeable, and it's about 7 centimeters long. Thankfully, it was only a scare and nothing came of it. For a while, I was insecure about it and stopped wearing skirts or tight leggings where you could see the outline of the scar, but now that I've accepted that it's gonna be there forever, I started to wear whatever, and I realized nobody cares about it apart from the odd question. Well, we went to the beach yesterday as a friend group, and I decided to wear a bikini. I was excited to get a tan, and my friend Anna brought her other friend by the name of Dana. I have met her before, but don't know her very well. However, I do know she started a fundraiser for her mom who is fighting cancer right now. Dana's family situation is quite difficult as her dad passed away recently, and her mom has stage 4 cancer. So needless to say, Dana is juggling quite a lot. I came earlier than Anna and Dana, so I was already in my bikini when they joined us, and Dana was nice to me and asked me about my new job. Then Anna went to say hi to the others, and Dana mentioned my scar and recognized that it was a biopsy. She then said something to me that honestly blew my mind. She asked me if I could wear a beach cover-up and that it was triggering to her and very insensitive of me as I know her mom is going through it right now. Well, I said no, I'm here to get a tan, and the cover-up will ruin that. Well, Dana didn't say anything, but she also didn't talk to me for the rest of the day. Well, fast forward to today, and Anna texted me telling me that Dana told her what happened, and while she agrees that Dana's comment was weird, she thinks that I should have given her a free pass as she is not in the best place mentally right now. But I said it was really weird, and no, I wouldn't. Now, I genuinely don't think I'm in the wrong, and I think she's just just being really weird about the whole situation. Obviously, if I'm in the wrong, I want to apologize. So I seriously need to know, am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. I don't think that you're in the wrong for wearing a bikini and being proud of something that you were previously insecure about. Like, for starters, it's none of Dana's business how you got that scar on your leg, and for her to seriously try to control your behavior as if you're triggering her in some kind of way, while also being like, wow, you're insensitive for not covering up. Like, that, in my opinion, is very obnoxious behavior, and that is so unbelievably uncalled for, it's not even funny. If someone has a trigger, guess what? That is your responsibility to manage. If someone doesn't follow some hidden protocol that they don't know about, then that's your job to deal with that personally, and not something you should try to enforce on other people just to try and be controlling and weird about it. Now, there's obviously nuances here, but for her to be like, wow, you are really insensitive for having a scar, and you're really triggering me right now, especially with my mom. Meanwhile, the original poster came there to wear a bikini and get a tan. They weren't going there to try and trigger Dana, and for them to imply that that's exactly what they were doing is really uncalled for. So I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think Dana was completely out of line for the way she acted, and it is definitely not your job to manage someone else's emotions. Am I the jerk for ordering spicy food that my husband can't eat? Because right now, it's causing major problems in my house, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I've been with my 28-year-old husband for 9 years, and we've been married for 2 years this summer. We have a daughter who is 7 years old, and we rarely even fight. And if we do, it has been more major and serious things. But this, what to me was a small issue, is now turning into the biggest argument we have ever had. So the problem is that me and our daughter love spicy food. I always have, and ever since I felt comfortable with her trying it, she has loved it as well. Sure, we couldn't compete in a spice eating contest, and even though our tolerance is high, it is not extreme. But my husband absolutely hates it. He is one of those people who thinks spice is unnecessary and only likes to use salt and pepper. Now, this is not a problem. Sometimes I make a batch that suits his taste, and then another one for me and our daughter. Sometimes me and our daughter will just eat how it is to his liking, as too little spices is easier to handle than to have too much as it would be for him. Now, this Saturday, he was away with friends to go pick up some car parts. It was a 12-hour drive in total, and they left at about 9 o'clock. I went ahead and ordered from an Indian place that our daughter has as her favorite. My husband also likes this place and just orders something mild when he eats from there. Since my husband was not home, I did not order him anything, as I thought that they would have eaten it on the road. When he got home, he greeted us, then immediately went to the fridge and saw some boxes left of food. But when he opened them, he obviously noticed that he could not eat any of them. Now, when he saw this, we argued for about 5 minutes. The consensus of the argument was him saying that I should have either thought about him and ordered something for him, or I should have asked him if he had eaten anything or just wanted anything. But I argued that I probably would have done so if it was just a few hours that he was away. But he was away for over 12 hours and came home about 4 hours after we usually eat. So I assumed that he had eaten something in the process. Now he has barely talked. He cooked dinner for himself because, in his words, I can't be bothered. He texted me from the living room when I was cooking for me and our daughter that he hoped I was happy to have my food my way. He is extremely weird about this, and he has never acted this way about something like this, and I'm getting even more confused by it all. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so for starters, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you're just getting food that you enjoy, and he's upset that he can't have it as well. The food you and your daughter like is clearly too spicy for him to handle, and that is clearly something that's bothering him to some degree. But with that in mind, like, what in the world were you supposed to do? Were you supposed to read his mind on his 12 hours on the road? Were you supposed to know just all of a sudden that he wanted something and that he didn't eat something on his way back to your house? Like, your husband's acting like you don't think about him at all, but in reality, you've made a lot of accommodations to help him out, and it really seems like he's not acknowledging that in the first place. Like, what happened to just straight up communication from your husband? Like, why not just say something instead of being weird about it? So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your husband's being very weird about all this, and I think if he really wanted some food, he definitely should have spoken up. My entitled roommate stays up all night long, then has the audacity to complain that other people are complaining about her. And I'm honestly so annoyed at my roommate, and I truly hope that she finally just shuts up. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a college student, and along with that comes my roommate. Now, unfortunately, the dorm rooms are all thinly walled, meaning our neighbors can hear even the slightest noises. My roommate has a new boyfriend who she likes talking to, but she talks to him late at night. Our hall has quiet hours that begin at 10 o'clock p.m., meaning the noise has to be kept to a minimum, or you might get in trouble for being too loud. It starts with a warning, then it moves up to fines, then after this is termination of the housing contract. She has gotten a warning from our neighbors a couple of times previously, and even had to go talk to the hall director once directly. And yet, with all this in mind, she got all mad when she now has to pay a fine because she was up until 12:30 p.m. talking to her boyfriend on speakerphone. For context, she is a loud talker to begin with, and her whisper sounds more like a regular speaking voice, which I have no problem with. I mean, I am the same way. However, not only did she complain to me, she complained to the neighbors that told on her. Now she is not in good standing with them either. She told me that she was going to go to the housing directors and file a complaint against our hall director, as well as our neighbors, because they make her feel that she does not have any freedom in her own room. Now, at this point, I don't know how this is gonna go over, and I seriously don't know what to do. This is funny to me because your roommate sounds incredibly spoiled. They sound like one of those people who literally had no responsibility growing up, and they also never owned up to anything wrong that they did. And here's the thing, I know exactly what they're talking about here when they're saying the walls are thin and you can literally hear everything. So for her to be going on and on at midnight of all times, and then turning around and being like, wow, I can't believe anybody told on me. It's like, seriously, what are you talking about? You can't be so loud all night and expect people not to get upset. So hopefully the message that your roommate is being way too loud finally sinks in, because based on what you're describing, she sounds absolutely obnoxious, and I truly feel so sorry that you've got to put up with her in the first place. Am I the jerk for calling the police on some parents after they leave me with their kids until 6 in the morning without letting me know exactly where they are? Because right now I'm being called a jerk as they claim that their phones died and they had no way of getting in contact with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I was asked to sit for a date night while the parents went to a wedding yesterday. I was supposed to watch a baby boy that was 13 weeks old, as well as his sister who's 2 years old, and this was going to be from 5 o'clock until 11 o'clock p.m. This is also not my first time watching either of these children. Now, our evening went as smooth as it could with a toddler and a baby. I got them to bed by 7:30 and started putting the house back together. At 10:15 p.m., I got a text from the parents asking if I could stay until 12 o'clock p.m., and I told them that's fine and to have fun. Well, 12:15 rolls around and I haven't heard from the parents. I sent a text asking if they're close and I didn't get a response. I can be pretty anxious, so my mind started thinking that they got into an accident or something bad happened. I didn't hear from them for about 5 minutes, and then I decided to call, but I still got no answer. Fast forward to 1 in the morning, and the baby has already woken up to feed again, and I'm just overly anxious at this point. It's 1 in the morning, and I have no one to call to calm me down. I would never assume that a late parent is just a late parent at 1 in the morning, so I am just on our city's Twitter page where they will let you know about road conditions and accidents, and I'm trying to see if anything happened within the last hour and a half, but nothing comes up. 2 o'clock in the morning rolls around, and I kid you not, I have called around 15 times and received no answer from either parent. I wanted to call the police at this point, but also didn't want the kids woken up and taken out of the house at 2 in the morning. I was hoping that the parents would walk in, and although I would be angry, I would know that at least they're fine. But again, that did not happen. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I finally decided to call the police and report the parents missing, and I told them that I couldn't keep them after having them all night. The police showed up at 5:22 in the morning and took a statement from me. I was asked for the parents' numbers, and the police asked if I could stay with the kids until they figured out exactly what to do. Well, at this point, the neighbors are outside, and the woman directly next door told me that she could stay with them. But I didn't know their relationship to her, so I told her I'd wait with the kids just for a little bit longer. Finally, at 5:48 in the morning, they roll up and are greeted by the police. The mom ran into the house thinking something had happened to the kids, but then she sighed when she saw why they were there. She said to me, "Our phones died and we didn't know how to get home from the venue." And when she said that, I was fuming. I called them irresponsible and the worst parents I've ever worked for. I demanded that she pay me on the spot, and then I left. I then got a long message about how this is my job and I'm such a huge jerk for disrespecting them, as well as for calling the police. She felt like I could have left them with the neighbors or called the emergency contacts and not the police. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not only not the jerk in this scenario, but the parents are some of the worst parents I think I've ever heard of in my life. Like literally, these people suck completely. For starters, they tried to extend your stay at their house by an hour, and then they extended that for literally the entire night. Like these morons didn't show up until 6 in the morning, and somehow that's your fault when you're freaking out not knowing what to do. Which, by the way, in my opinion, I think you did the right thing. Calling the police and getting them involved involved truly was the right move to make, especially when the parents aren't answering their stupid phones. Like, for them to try and twist this around and be like, no, this is your fault. How dare you call the police on us? It's like, lady, what are you talking about? You are 100% at fault, and you are a terrible mother for letting this happen. If their phones actually died and they didn't have any power, then they should have gone to some store that's open and bought a charger. Like, I'm pretty sure most gas stations, at least in America, would have some kind of cheap charger they could get to at least bring their phone back to life. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. The parents in this are absolutely incredibly irresponsible, and I just can't imagine trying to blame you for trying to be safe. I don't want to go on a family trip, all because last year when we went on this trip, it was an absolute nightmare for me. And right now, my husband is saying that if I'm not going, then he wants to take our son with him, which is an idea that I'm completely opposed to. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner is in a car club, and every alternate year they do a long weekend trip. And this is somewhere across the country, which normally involves a lot of travel. The schedule is really full, with lots of events starting early and gala dinners and award nights, so it goes quite late. Now, we as a family went on one in 2022 when our son was just 1 year old. To say the trip was a disaster was an understatement. I spent the majority of the time by myself with our son, while my partner and his family were off doing the car events. I had to travel by myself, including a flight with a layover and hire a car, and our son didn't sleep well. He was teething and away from his normal home and routine, so I was running off of like no sleep for nearly 5 days, which I had to deal with alone because he had big days ahead of him. So you can probably pick up that I was super uncomfortable and very stressed out. My partner has now said that the car club has announced the dates for this year, and he wants us to go as a family. It is a 4 to 5 hour drive, and our son will be 3 years old. His car needs to be show ready and would not fit the car seat, as well as the particoat, luggage, car cleaning and polishing kit, as well as any potential roadside repair kit. Basically, it's a classic car, so it has no air conditioning, and also, as a classic car, suspension isn't great, so on long, windy, bumpy trips, I definitely get car sick. So I will have to take our son in my own car and drive there and back on my own. Now, I've said I don't want to go, and to be honest, I still haven't forgotten how terrible the last trip was. He thinks that I'm being unreasonable, and I just need to get over it because it's a fun thing to do as a family. He's also said that if I don't go, he wants to take our son, which I don't agree with either. They have fully booked days and events going into the night, so I don't understand logistically how he's going to look after our son, and I absolutely do not want him to be left with someone that we don't know to look after him while he goes out. He thinks I'm not being supportive and missing out on an opportunity to spend quality time together, but I seriously do not see it that way. So honestly, I really need to know, am I the jerk for not wanting to go to this car club trip, or for even wanting my partner to take my son? What should I do? No, I definitely do not think you're the jerk at all for not wanting to go to this trip. Like, literally last time you had to do all of this by yourself. Like, your husband's going off and partying and doing all this other fun stuff while you're literally running on no sleep, you're taking care of your son, and you're handling all this other logistical stuff that is truly a nightmare. Like, this guy just does not respect the fact that you did so much to make sure that he was happy at that trip, because you very easily could have flipped a switch and said to him, okay, it's your turn to take over, and then went off to leave him with your kid, who, by the way, is really cranky and got no sleep. So no, I don't blame you at all for being like, nope, I'm not gonna go with you this time. I have ridden that circus and I'm not doing it again. But on the subject of him taking his son with him to this trip, I can understand your concerns, but also I think it would be really funny if he did actually take your son, and then he would be solely responsible for taking care of his son and getting a very serious taste of his own medicine right there at this party. And sure, I understand all of your concerns about not wanting your son to go with your husband to this event, but it also would be a fantastic way to see revenge take its course and basically remind your husband of all the good that you do in his life. But overall, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. I think it's completely reasonable for you to say, no, I'm going to sit this one out. And in my opinion, if your husband really wants to take his son with him on this trip, then I think if I was in your shoes, I would allow it to happen and willingly let chaos unfold. My entitled mother abandoned me when I was a child, refusing to raise me, thus forcing my grandparents to step up and take care of me as a child. But now that she found out that I'm getting married, she has suddenly stepped right back into my life, demanding to be involved in the wedding planning process. And I've honestly never been more frustrated by anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, my parents did not raise me. My mother baby trapped my dad, which is definitely not a good start, and short after the announcement announcement, he left. She didn't want me anymore, so my grandparents took me and raised me as their own. She was never a mother to me, and when my grandparents died, we lost contact for 2 years. Fast forward, and I announced my engagement on Facebook, and she called me right afterwards. Now, it's important to know that she's not my Facebook friend, nor does she have my number, so I was so confused. Now, if it's not weird enough, she starts arguing with me that she's upset that I didn't call her first, as she's my mother. She said that a wedding is a big event for a mother and her daughter, and she wanted to be involved. And oh boy, trust me, did she complain about everything. It's a spring wedding, so nature and cottagecore thematics, and the dress code is pastel colors. No brown or gray, black, white, even for me and my fiance. And my menu is mostly vegetarian. I posted pictures of me and my bridesmaids dress shopping, and she called me furious. She said that I owe my sisters the bridesmaid titles, and dress shopping is a thing between a mother and her daughter, and I just ruined her experience. Now, for reference, my sisters are not even on the guest list. And about that, this is a child-free wedding. And she said to me, this is a personal attack against her new family, and that she can't accept that. I replied by saying, okay, well, you guys are not invited anyways. Well, she ignored me, obviously, as my aunt must have shown her the invitation because she called me again. She said that my sisters being neurodivergent would be overwhelmed by an outside wedding, and that I need to have a buttered pasta or a hot dog on my menu or they wouldn't eat. I replied again by saying, I don't care because you guys are not invited. And it was then that I decided to block her. But yet again, she calls me with her boyfriend's phone and tells me that she found a better venue for me. Also, she said that since I'll wear her wedding dress, we need to meet for measurements. Now, for reference, her dress is a big white princess dress with a corset, but I told her that none of that is on the theme and that she needs to stop calling me. Fast forward to recently, and she messaged me on Instagram and said that I need to change my wedding day because this is my date and it will bring misfortune. So I'm honestly just so annoyed at my mom's entitlement because I seriously do not want her showing up at my wedding. Wow, your mom is seriously obnoxious. Not only did she baby trap your dad, but she also didn't want anything to do with you. She literally is the definition of an awful mother. And now that you're getting married and you have this wonderful dream wedding that you're planning, she is suddenly trying to insert herself in the middle of this and acting like you two have some amazing relationship, even though you definitely don't. Like seriously, what is her problem? She's trying to pretend like you had some great upbringing between the two of you, when in reality your own grandparents had to step in as parents and raise you. It is really disgusting the way she's acting, and the way she's literally trying to take over your wedding. I mean, wouldn't you think that she would catch on eventually that you are not inviting her to your wedding, and that she is not going to be there no matter what? Meaning that she has no say in what you do or don't do for your wedding. And on that note, in my opinion, it wouldn't be a bad idea to hire some kind of security. I can guarantee you, if she's this obsessive about your wedding, then she will absolutely try to show up and probably crash your wedding. Because based on what you've described, I would not put that past her in the slightest. And I think that definitely is a reality that you need to be prepared for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband of 19 years doesn't trust me and can't get over me kissing another guy 23 years ago, and constantly brings this up anytime we have an argument, and I'm now at such a loss that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my husband when I was 23 years old. We are now 46 and 47. We've been married for 19 years and we have 2 children. The circumstances surrounding the commencement of our relationship are complex. For starters, I was unfaithful. It happened due to me being in a bad place mentally at the time that we met. Now, I'm not using this as an excuse. I was completely in the wrong. I was young and immature, and I wasn't ready for a committed relationship. I wanted to live the single life after being in a long-term relationship since the age of 14, including one that ended very badly. My coping mechanism was denial, and I led a double life for a few weeks in the first few months after we started dating. I flirted with a guy at work and I kissed him 3 times. If guys were interested in me, I teased, but other than the kisses I mentioned earlier, I wasn't intimate with anyone except for my husband. I was 23 and I was stupid. Eventually, I came to my senses and I came clean. My husband and I had fallen for each other hard and very quickly. I wasn't ready for a committed relationship, but I was in love and I wanted to make things right. He initially wanted to break up with me, but I left the decision up to him. He asked me to cut off all contact with the other boys, and so I did exactly that. I even cut off most of my friendships and social circles circles, just to demonstrate how sorry I was and to help regain his trust. And since then, I have not done a single thing to give him any doubt of my fidelity. I greatly regret my actions and would give anything to repair the hurt I caused my husband. He eventually said he forgave me and we could move on together. We then had a great relationship and married 4 years later. Now fast forward 23 years and he still brings up the events of our early relationship whenever we have an argument. He keeps trying to get me to confess that I slept with someone even though I didn't. Our marriage has disintegrated. We have 2 kids with disabilities, so the focus for a long time has been on them. We have no connection and we are not in a happy marriage. I now also have early onset Parkinson's disease, so things are really hard for me. But I still work and I still manage the bulk of the kids' disabilities and the mental load. A year ago at Christmas, he blew up at me and said that he wanted a divorce. He said that I was too controlling and he had had enough. The trigger was me staying up late cooking gingerbread cookies and then tidying up the toy room. Parkinson's keeps me awake at night, so I decided to get some chores done, and that kept him awake. I didn't realize that it was such a problem. The next morning, I was rearranging things in a different way than he wanted, and he just blew up at me. He got completely drunk, ruined the family Christmas, and made a total mess of himself. The past got brought up again, and he wanted revenge. He stole Christmas money that was gifted to me so that he could use it on a lady of the night, if you know what I mean. Now, I stayed calm throughout all of it. I tried to keep him safe and diffuse the situation, despite the hurt that I was feeling. Now, he didn't follow through with wanting to see a lady of the night, and he did return the money the next day. And on that next day, he sobered up and he apologized. He said that he wasn't coping mentally, and he didn't mean what he said. I forgave him and I supported him. He said he would organize marriage counseling, even though he hasn't done that, and stayed sober for about a year. He saw a counselor at work for himself twice, but didn't follow up ongoing sessions. Now he has started drinking again. He doesn't drink to excess, but has a few drinks every night. We haven't been intimate in years and we have no connection. We live parallel lives. He has his own hobbies and enjoyment, and I enjoy the kids and their disabilities, and I try to manage my disability too. But I struggle to find the time due to all my efforts going towards the kids and even him. My disease is so bad that even walking is a challenge, but I push on alone for my kids. I listen to any problems that he has and I offer support. I have lots of problems too, but I don't bring them up. I keep everything inside as I'm afraid to let him in. My home life and my career is in tatters. I am slowly losing everything that once made me who I am. I was in a bad place late last year and I wanted to end things between us. He said he would arrange counseling even though he didn't, and we talked about what we could do to get back on track. But unless I initiate things, they literally just don't happen. I see a counselor on my own to help me deal with my own disability. Myself and the kids have a disability support worker who is single and spends a lot of time supporting our family. On Saturday, my husband invited her around to make kombucha together. I told him that I had to take the kids to the pediatrician and that I wouldn't be home. Well, he still invited her, and she came around while I wasn't home. Then I found a text message from her for his birthday, signed with a kiss emoji. Now, she is close to our family, so this may have been an innocent thing, but I was upset and uncomfortable about these two things, and I told him exactly how I felt. Well, he apologized and then brought up what happened 23 years ago. Again, it happens whenever we fight, or whenever I bring up an issue. He even went through old photo albums to look for evidence of me cheating on him. He didn't find anything as there is nothing to find, and I feel like I've been the perfect wife and have stuck by him and forgiven him on many occasions. But he has still not forgiven me for something I did 23 years ago. He tells me that he loves me, but I don't feel that he does. I think he is staying with me only for the kids and because I take care of everything else in our life. I pay all the bills, I organize all the medical care for our kids, the school administration, the calendar, all the paperwork, etc. And I do this while holding down a job and dealing with a worsening disability. I'm so exhausted by all of this. So seriously, can we ever recover from this? If he can't trust me now, will he ever trust me again? What should I do? Your husband is a massive piece of garbage, and the way he's treating you is completely inappropriate. You're telling me this guy has seriously held a grudge for 23 years? Like, my God, this guy just can't let anything go. And it's evidence that he clearly didn't forgive you back in the day when this first came out. And here's the thing, you recognize that you made a mistake. You were 23 years old and you were very stupid. You admit that yourself. So you would think that your husband would come to some kind of conclusion that you really are sorry and you are trying to move on from that. But instead, after 23 years, he still brings this up as if it happened yesterday. And it makes me think, like, buddy, what is wrong with you? If it really bothers you that much and it's been bothering you for literally over 2 decades, then why on earth did you welcome her back into your life? Why not just break it off right then and there and move on and find somebody else? This is all so incredibly inappropriate, and it is not fair for you in the slightest, because you really have done all you can to make up for you being unfaithful. But even still, after 23 years, it is literally still not enough. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she shouldn't have had a baby if she was not prepared to try and take care of it? Because right now she is furious that I will not be able to help her anymore, as me and my family will be moving away. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister and I live about an hour away from each other. She had a baby 4 months ago, and the father, who is her ex-boyfriend of 7 years, left as soon as he found out that she was pregnant. He was a man-child and made it clear that he didn't want anything serious, despite dating her so long. I kept telling her to leave because she always wanted a family and he clearly didn't, and clearly wouldn't have taken responsibility for one. Then she got pregnant and decided to keep it as she was getting older and scared that she wouldn't be able to conceive. Well, she had the baby and had to go right back to work. She never made very much, and her work only let her take FMLA leave for about a month, as she didn't have enough money. She also hasn't taken the father to court despite my insistence that she does, because she cannot afford daycare for her daughter. So now she works from 4 o'clock until 12 o'clock p.m. But I work until 5 o'clock p.m. but from home, so she drops off her baby before going to work. It's distracting from my work, and her daughter has a hard time going to bed and cries pretty much throughout the entire night. My children are sick of it, and so is my husband and I. Hardly anybody can go to bed until she shows up and picks up her kid at 1 in the morning. My children even had to study in the basement as it was quieter. I've told her to move closer, but she hasn't yet, and I really feel like she's making me into the husband that walked out on her in her life. Well, my husband is moving for his fellowship, and I let her know about a week ago that we will be leaving in 2 months. She and I have had this routine for 3 months now, and her daughter is 4 months old. So I let her know she has 2 months to find another method of finding care for her daughter. Well, when I said that, she got mad and accused me of leaving because I didn't want to help anymore, and that my husband could go alone. I got mad when she said I should prioritize her over my family, and pointed out that I'd been helping her for 3 months, and it was affecting my work and my children's schooling. She then started crying and yelling that I wasn't being fair, and it was only because her ex walked out on her life. I said she knew the father would leave, and I had been pointing out that he was not going to be a good father since they were dating. She knew it, and her friends also begged her to leave, so if she wanted a child, she should not have stayed. I said that she brought this on herself, and she should not have children with a father she knew was useless, and she knew she didn't have the money to take care of a child. She yelled at me saying I was saying that her daughter shouldn't exist, but when she said that, I just left and drove home. She probably cannot find childcare and pay for it, but I feel like I'm now her crutch. Even when we were younger, she relied on me a lot, and I feel like it's better that I just leave and she figures it out. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? Honestly, I really feel bad for your sister because she's in a tight spot, and the one person she could rely on is suddenly moving away. So I really do take her complaints with a grain of salt, because she probably has literally no one to help her out with this child. Which, by the way, yes, it is her own fault, but also that is really a tough situation. Like, I can only imagine what that must feel like to literally have nobody else to look to try and help you figure out this situation. And it's not like you didn't warn her that this would happen. Like, you did say straight up, hey, he's not gonna stick around if you get pregnant. Like, you really did try to give her some kind of warning for her to prep her life in some kind of way, but she ignored it and still had a child. And there's nothing wrong with having kids, but in my opinion, if you're not able to take care of those kids, then you definitely should not be having them. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think this really is just a sad situation for your sister, and I really hope she's able to figure this out sooner than later. My wife has gone off the religious deep end, and it is now drastically impacting our relationship, and I now feel so lost, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, we've been married for 3 years and have been together for 8 years in total. Before getting married, it was important to make sure that we were compatible on some bigger questions. I don't follow any scripture-based religion or a personal god, and would probably align closest towards atheism, and that has always been the case. My wife was raised Christian, and while she believed in God and all that other stuff, she didn't feel obligated to go to church all the time or take all of that too literally. For example, she confirmed with me that she believed in evolution and stuff like that, which to me really was a relief. A key point here is that she did not want kids at all, and was vehement about that. that. With this as our basis and future plan, we decided to get married. I have always been comfortable to let people hold their own beliefs as long as it does not impact me now or in the future. So we get married, and about 9 months ago, I noticed my wife is starting to go to church regularly and has become more judgmental and focused on nonsense US talking points. For reference, we are not American. She then starts making jokes about wanting a baby. Her whole personality changed suddenly. She was a quiet and relaxed artsy girl, and now seems to be more snarky and highly conservative. She got so offended watching Darren Brown on TV that we had to switch it off. A few more months pass by, and my wife has clearly heavily fallen under the influence. Her friends are solely people from the church. All she listens to are religious podcasts and music. She wanted me to go to church with her every single week, and her phone is a screensaver of a cross, while mine is us getting married. Her only hobby is going to church, and when I brought up the idea that our lives were getting boring and that it may be good to find a new hobby or something like that, all she could come up with were church activities, and she became furious when I suggested that maybe she should be doing something non-religious. Now, all of a sudden, she feels the desperate need for me to open my heart to God and to save our marriage, as if I was the one who was actively changing. She threatened divorce if I did not convert within 2 months, and she had material ready for me to read and watch. Now, I told her that I would go through the material, but that there was no chance of me converting, that it was all stuff I encountered before being raised in a Christian environment too. I believe that she became born again during this period. So I went through the material, and by the end of the 2 months, she had settled down and seemed to accept that I won't change. She doesn't seem to truly believe that I've opened my heart, as she thinks that I would have 100% converted if I did. I try to explain to her that it's easier for her to convert to another religion than it is for me to become a Christian. Now, the baby talk is increasing, regardless of me stating that I do not want to have kids. She is regularly hinting at babies, and bear in mind, she no longer believes in evolution, and she believes in demons and possessions, which is very alarming for me. She has stated that the child will have to be raised under her religion and will be going to church every week. She also doesn't think that I should reveal my beliefs, and this is weirdly at odds with her idea of the man being the head of the house, which seems to only relate to paying for stuff, which is another thing that appeared during this period. Now, to be clear, there is a 0% chance of me having children with her. But how long do I sit this out? I mean, could this just be a phase? Will I ever get back the woman that I fell in love with and married back in the day? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, the way your wife is acting is seriously insane. Here's the thing, if you want to be religious, that's totally fine. But for her entire personality to switch pretty much overnight, and for her to do a giant 180 on all the things that you thought you were in agreement for, in my opinion, is not normal. Like, her priorities are completely mixed up, and she's not considering you in this equation in the slightest. So to that end, I think it's a really good idea that you don't have any kids with this lady. She does not sound stable, and seriously, that sounds like a nightmare if you did have kids with her. But here's the thing that in my opinion is like the biggest red flag, and this to me is a massive deal breaker, even though it's really unfortunate. She threatened to divorce you if you didn't join her religion in 2 months. That for me is seriously absolutely uncalled for, and I would not put up with that for a second. So truly, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, and I really hope it gets better, because the way your wife is acting is not normal, and I think for your sake, it really would be a good idea to be careful moving forward. Today, I messed up by proposing to my girlfriend, resulting in her second-guessing her entire relationship with me, and then finally breaking up with me. And I honestly feel really stupid for initiating this in the first place, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So as the title suggests, I proposed to my girlfriend of just under 2 years last week. Now, she was surprised, but she said yes. For reference, we're both 21 years old. We both told our families and talked more about it on the way back to our apartment, which was about a 2-hour drive. After we got back, we told our families, and it all seemed good. But problems happened when she got really anxious. We haven't had any major issues before. Even the few arguments that we have, they have all been very minor and quickly resolved. So she gets this massive knot in her stomach and goes home for a week. Well, once she gets back, we talk a lot about how she isn't ready to be engaged engaged and had just not been 100% in, and just that she had been comfortable. The day after, we talk some more, and then boom, she is breaking up with me and says it isn't my fault. She says stuff like she just doesn't want to hurt me more and can't make a promise if she isn't 100%. We talked more this weekend, and she said she isn't willing to go to a relationship counselor or anything like that to try and narrow down the holdup, just to see if we can salvage anything. I don't think that she was looking for a reason to break up or think it's anything like that. We had talked about engagement as well as the future a bunch, and it just seemed right. Her parents were fully supportive of me asking her, and I feel dumb for shaking things up. We had both been content and very happy. What frustrates me the most is just how wrong I was, and how not once when we were talking about stuff did it seem like she wasn't 100% in. I thought we were all in, and we moved in together and had been doing great from what I could tell. So now I'm looking for another place to stay because I was too dumb to realize my near perfect relationship wasn't ready. That I caused a breakup by proposing and causing us both to think about the future and us a lot more than we probably should have. And I'm now seriously unsure of what to do. So honestly, it doesn't seem like the problem is with you at all. If anything, it really seems like your girlfriend is just not ready to get married. Like you were all in. You felt like, yes, this feels right. Let's pursue this head on and have a life together or something like that. But she clearly was not feeling the same way. And honestly, with all things considered, this is probably a really good thing to figure out right about now. So I don't fault her at all for saying no. Like, I think that's a very smart and mature thing to do, but I do think it's completely inappropriate for you to be hard on yourself for ever trying to assume that you somehow broke up this relationship. Because in this scenario, I definitely do not think that falls on you in the slightest. My partner's entitled mother claims that she got me my job and that she should be praised and thanked for getting me a job. But aside from only telling me about the job itself, my partner's mom is absolutely delusional, and I'm honestly at my wit's end dealing with her weird attitude. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I took a huge step last year and I moved in with my long distance partner. My big focus when we moved into our apartment was securing a job. I'd been job hunting and sending in resumes and applications as early as a month before moving. But those of you who have been playing the job application game the past couple of years or so know exactly how bad the post-pandemic job market really is. I ended up finding and getting hired at a place within 6 weeks of moving into our apartment, which was really awesome. But how this came about has become quite a point of contention. I had originally considered the company that I know work for among the places I was applying, but I placed it lower on the list given they originally didn't list what they planned to pay, and I consider the commute to be too far to justify the gas. I was also worried it could be a waste of time, as too many businesses are claiming that they're desperately hiring nowadays, but then they never get back to you. About 3 weeks after moving in, my partner's parents stopped by. His mom was upset because she had stopped by the business before coming by and found it partially closed due to short staffing. She told me that I should go and apply. I told her I had considered and gave her the reasons why I had not yet applied, but decided to do so since it was clear they were actually in need of staff. Within 2 weeks of sending in my application, I was gotten back to, I was interviewed, and then I was hired. I ended up learning the pay and the benefits more than justified my commuting time, and I've been happily employed here ever since. But here's where the problems come in. My partner's mom constantly talks about how she got me that job. Anytime someone asked about my work in front of her and I respond positively, she reminds me that I should thank her, because without her, I wouldn't be so happy or paid so well. I mean, she never lets it go. She never fails to bring it up, and it's been driving me crazy lately. And while I've asked my partner to please speak to her about it, she still hasn't pulled back. I had a very long day yesterday, and I ended up snapping at her at the dinner table when she brought it up yet again. She said to me that I don't thank her enough for getting me that nice job. But I told her she did not get me that job. She did not work through my previous jobs, build my skills, or compile my resume for me. She didn't fill out my application, she didn't go to my interview, or go to my training. That was literally all on me. I told her I appreciate that she let me know they were understaffed and renewed my interest in applying, but the person who gets me my job and my money is me and me alone. Well, after I said that, she is now very unhappy and has called me disrespectful and says that I just have no respect for older people. My partner agrees with me that she's been pushing it too far, but wants me to try and make peace. But I honestly don't think that I should have to. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Am I justified for calling her out and saying exactly what I did? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. You are definitely not the jerk. Your partner's mom mom is absolutely obnoxious, and the fact that she's trying to take credit for you getting that job is so atrocious. Like, her frequency of reminding you in front of everybody has almost become like this weird, aggressive form of control where she's trying to put herself above you for some weird reason. Because you've got it right, she didn't do anything to get you that job. The only thing she did was point out that they're looking for people to work there, and that was literally it. So sure, she can take credit for tipping you off, but like, seriously, who would take credit for that? She's trying to equate that small act of like generosity as some kind of like groundbreaking moment where she can be like, ooh, you owe me so much. Now you have to respect me because I got one over on you. Like, that's really the attitude I'm getting from this lady, and it's really obnoxious. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your partner's mom is 100% at fault, and she didn't do a thing to help you out in the slightest. So I don't blame you for correcting her and putting a stop to this once and for all. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I'm thinking about calling off my wedding, all because of my fiance's comments about me bringing my son to live with me, because right now I'm completely devastated, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I lived in America up until I was 15 years old, and then my mom sent me to live with my dad in Guyana. I was originally supposed to live there until I was 18 years old, but I ended up coming back to New York when I was 24. During my time in Guyana, I had a son with my ex-girlfriend. I moved back to New York when he was 2 years old, and his mom and I decided it's best for him to stay with her in Guyana. It's better for him to know his culture and stay grounded. I have been back there many times to see him, and he's come to stay here with me as well. In the end, he was always supposed to come here to live with me, and this is where my fiance comes in. We've been together for 2.5 years, and she has met my son. I've always been very vocal about the fact that he's going to come and live with me, and this year is the year where he will permanently be moving here. He's going to come in the summer and then start his first year of middle school. Well, I started to notice her not being on board with the whole idea last year, which is right when I was looking for houses. I was thinking about moving somewhere nearby in New Jersey due to a better school system, but my fiance disagreed. There have been other pretty minimal things here and there since, but she's never outright said that he shouldn't come here, but has said things that heavily implied it. However, each time I ask her to further explain, it would end with the fact that she wants him here. Well, our wedding is literally 3 Saturdays from now, and yesterday she said explicitly that she does not want him to move in with us. We started arguing about something else that was pretty minimal, but it escalated to a bigger discussion about our future, and that's when she said that she prefers if he remains with his mom. Her main reasoning was that she didn't want to fill in as a stepmom with no other mom present. She would feel so odd with having him around pretty much early on in our marriage, and she feels like we should wait until he's older, or she wants him to not come at all and just come for vacations. From day one, I have said that my son is going to live with me, even going as far as giving her a time frame. I always said that I want him here right before he starts middle school. I've said this for 2.5 years. If she felt this way the whole time, then why not say something earlier? Why wait until only weeks before our wedding? I'm genuinely thinking about calling it off, and I need advice on my options here, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. This is honestly so unfair to you, it really does suck. So the entire time, like the entire time she's known you, she has had these thoughts and these doubts in the back of her mind, but she hasn't said anything about it. Like, you literally could not have been more clear that this is something you want to happen. And now what, 3 Saturdays from your wedding, she's now being like, well, wait a second, let's not have your son move here. It's like, what are you talking about? It is way too late for that. If she really had an issue with this, she should have brought this up, I don't know, years ago, or maybe moved on to somebody else that could share a goal that she agrees with. But to silently go along with this, only to then drop this on someone who clearly wants this, is honestly insane to me. And that is seriously a massive red flag. I know if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be looking at changing things around big time, because this is a huge betrayal of trust. You thought you had somebody who was on board with your plans, or at least someone who shared the same goals as you in some kind of way, but boy, does it really seem like she lied to you just to get this far. So hopefully this all works out for you and you're able to find some kind of solution, because legitimately what you're describing right now sounds absolutely awful. I caught my friend kissing my husband's neck while I was asleep, and now that I've confronted my husband about this, he's claiming that nothing bad happened and that I'm blowing things way out of proportion. And at this point, I seriously now don't know what to do. Okay, so my husband and I have been married for 2 years and together for 3. This just happened about 5 hours ago, and I'm not sure how to feel or what to believe. For For context, my friend comes over to drink and hang out every once in a while, and when she does, we let her sleep in the guest room so she doesn't drive home drunk. Last night, we all decided to watch a movie in bed. I fell asleep after maybe an hour, and at 4 a.m., I feel them both move off of the bed, so it woke me up. My husband said he went to go get water, and my friend said that she had to use the bathroom. After they got back onto the bed, I was awake, but my eyes were closed. I noticed the movie got louder, and then I heard a kissing noise. I turned over slowly, and I saw my friend caressing my husband from behind and giving him kisses on his neck while he watched the movie. Once she realized that I saw her, she froze, quickly moved her hands, and we stared at each other for a good 30 seconds. Eventually, I asked her what was going on, and she swore it was nothing and that nothing happened. My husband initially said the same, but after about an hour and a half of asking for the truth, he told me that he didn't know the kisses were for him and that he froze and didn't know what to do. When I asked him why it took him so long to tell me the truth, he said it was because he was afraid of how my friend would react. I don't know if I should believe him or not. She kissed him twice that I know of, and he has a history of lying to me. My friend was quiet the whole time I was trying to get the truth out of my husband, and eventually I told her to leave my house. She left, and my husband got upset at me for being mad at him for what happened. Personally, I think he shouldn't have let it get to that point in the first place. He said that she caught him by surprise, but eventually confessed that she first rubbed him on his back and told him it's okay, and then after that, she sat directly behind him, hugged him from behind, and started to kiss his neck multiple times. He said that she was probably just comforting him because she noticed that he was upset because him and I have been having some issues lately. But I feel like they both have fault. She was insanely wrong for doing that, and he was wrong for letting her do that. He says that I'm messed up for getting mad at him and not her, which is not true. I'm honestly mad at the both of them. I'm not sure how to go about this. Part of me wants to call it quits, but the other half of me feels bad for not believing him. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I think you need to say the quiet part out loud in my opinion, because it really seems like your husband is cheating on you. I don't believe for a second that this is something that just happened suddenly in your bed. Like, I'm pretty sure this has been going on for a while, and he's definitely been a willing participant in all of this. Like, I know for a fact that if a woman started kissing up on me, and I had a girlfriend who I loved and appreciated, I would recoil from her immediately and be like, wait a second, what are you doing? Get away from me. I would make a massive fuss and say, you've gotta go. This is not okay, and you've crossed a serious boundary. But the husband in this story didn't do anything like that. He didn't even push away from her when she started rubbing up against him. Like, he just sat there and allowed it to happen. So it kind of makes me believe that he's used to this kind of treatment from this friend specifically. And that's honestly awful. It makes me wonder what they do together when you fall asleep inside of that guest room. This all seems super sketchy and in my opinion, a massive red flag you cannot ignore. I mean, he even tried to say, oh, I didn't stop her because I was afraid of how she would react. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. Your wife is literally sleeping right next to you on your bed. So hopefully this all works out for you, because this honestly sounds awful and you do not deserve this in the slightest. My mom feels entitled to my clothing all the time, constantly calling me selfish if I don't give her all of my clothing whenever she wants it, while also saying that I'm gonna be a terrible roommate and friends to anybody in the future. And I'm honestly so done with the way she treats me that I'm already planning on cutting her out of my life when I get old enough. And I honestly can't wait for that day to come sooner than later. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female, and my mom, who lives in Oregon, had a falling out this December, and recently she came to visit me and my dad in Texas. I was very worried about this because of her and I having the fight, but she seemed to regret what she did and was trying to be careful around me for the first day that she visited, which I really did appreciate. The second day, she asked to borrow some leggings or shorts from me to go play tennis, and I initially said no, as I buy all my clothes myself, and I'm pretty protective over my leggings in particular, which are pretty expensive, and I don't like getting dirty or sweaty. However, she begged me, so I gave her a pair of shorts to use. She said they were too short and she needed leggings because of the cold outside. So I found a pair that I would maybe be okay with her using, as long as she took care of them. She tried them on and told me that they were too short as well, and that she needed leggings that go all the way down to her ankle instead of the mid-calf. I argued with her and said that I wasn't willing to let her borrow the ones I own like that, and then she started yelling at me, and my dad did as well to back her up, saying that I'm selfish and I need to hand them over. Well, I told her no, and that I had given her plenty of options, and that she should just choose from those, and that it wasn't my fault that she hadn't packed any with her. She and my dad then said that I should have let her look through my closet and pick out whatever she wanted, and that everyone, such as my future roommates and friends, are going to hate me because I was too selfish. I just walked away to my room to cool off, and there I found a pair of fleece-lined leggings, which she initially accepted. But she heard the tone of my voice, which wasn't sunshine and rainbows, due to her being so rude to me right before. She said that I was being too rude to her and that she didn't need the leggings anyways because she could just wear the pair that she had worn on the plane the day before. I was so incredibly insulted by this because if she had a pair, then why ask me for one? We were both pretty upset, and she calmed down a little bit and said she wanted to talk to me about how selfish I was being. I told her it was not the right time as I had to get to work, and when I went to go, she then said an awful swear word to me, and I honestly couldn't believe it. She said this to her own daughter, who she was trying to make it up to. My dad refused to drive me to work, so I went to bike over. As I was leaving, my mom decided to put in one last jab and told me to take off the shirt I was wearing, which she had given me because it didn't suit her. She grabbed a pair of scissors and said she was going to cut it up, to which I laughed and took off the shirt. My dad realized how crazy she was acting and tried to calm her down. She asked why I was laughing, and I said to her, "And you think that you've changed? That is honestly a joke." Anyways, I changed my shirt and was halfway out the door when she yelled at me some more. I eventually then left for work and got out of there. But unfortunately, this is not even the worst of my mom. But once I'm old enough, I absolutely have the plan to cut her out of my life. Yeah, your mom sounds absolutely unhinged. Like, her behavior was completely unhinged. She quite literally tried to steal clothing from you, all under the guise of like, oh, but I need a pair of leggings. But it's like she already brought leggings with her. Why is she trying to take yours and use yours instead of her own? Like, that really is weird to me, and I would be just as upset as the original poster in this situation. Like, she's literally just doing this, it seems like, to get a rise out of you. And that is so annoying to deal with. So truly, I hope everything works out for you in the end. I really hope you don't have to deal with your mom in this capacity very soon, because the way she's acting and treating you is so self-centered. And in my opinion, your mom and your dad absolutely suck. My husband tries to warn our neighbors about their landscaping, but gets told to mind his own business several times. So my husband decides to maliciously comply, allowing them to practically ruin their yard and get in trouble with the city and the HOA. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my husband is pretty handy. Prior to COVID, he had flipped several houses as a fun side gig. It's what he really loves to do, and he became very familiar with a ton of city codes. During COVID, it seems everyone was suddenly buying houses to flip out of boredom, and prices skyrocketed, so he put that on hold. So then he started doing household repairs and upgrades, building fences and stuff like that all around the neighborhood as well. To get a better understanding of the neighborhood HOA bylaws and whatnot, he joined the HOA Architectural Committee, though he learned all there was to know about what was allowed and what was not, how the processes worked, and how to work around certain things. So, long story short, my husband was very knowledgeable in what to do and not do, and various processes with the neighborhood and the city. Our next door neighbor decided they were going to start landscaping their backyard, and they, I guess, planned to make theirs as similar to our backyard as possible. The problem was that despite being next door neighbors, our land was quite different. For one thing, behind our house was a bunch of brush and pine trees, maybe 3 to 4 feet from the lake that's at the back of the house. We didn't have to do a whole lot to clear the area, but the brush on their property was about 1/3 of their yard, and I'd say it was about 10 feet from the water, give or take. Also, the way the houses on our street are, the land naturally made like a valley, where the house to our right is at the top and we're in the middle, and the next two houses are at the bottom before it quickly rises again. The first thing the neighbors did was cut down all the trees in their backyard, and they were not small trees either, but rather 4-story tall trees or more. My husband and neighbor were talking about the backyard plans when my husband casually mentioned that he was surprised the city gave him permission to cut down so many trees. For reference, in our city, you had to have an arborist give permission to cut down any trees that were over a certain height. The neighbor first said it wasn't the city's business what he did with his backyard. Then he told my husband to mind his own business, which is like, okay, fair enough. Then they started putting up the retaining wall to bring it up to level with our property, which would have been about 7 to 8 feet tall. Basically, they were just stacking a bunch of cinder blocks. So my husband uneasily asked if their landscapers had ever done a retaining wall like that, and if the city approved it. The city says that if a retaining wall is over 5 feet tall, you need a structural engineer to come out. Again, the neighbor said it wasn't any of the city's business what he did to his yard, while also reminding my husband to mind his own business. Well, while they're filling up the backyard to bring their levels to ours, the landscapers are dumping all the dirt, gravel, and sand into the street, and they were blocking a little over half of the road. Several of the neighbors who had trucks would just hop the curb, but other neighbors with smaller cars were mad. Before my neighbor could ask if they could put the dirt and stuff in their driveway instead of the road like everybody else, my neighbor went off on my husband and told him to get lost in not so nice of words. So we thought, okay then. My husband let them continue working and didn't say a word as they started constructing a 10-foot tall fence, which was against HOA regulations, as fences could not be taller than 6 feet. Between them starting construction 6 days before 7 a.m. and them blocking the road, I guess someone had finally had enough. The next thing I know, city officials were out there putting a giant sign in the yard saying all construction was to be halted until further notice. Now, let me tell you something. It was not us who did this, but my husband found out through the architectural committee that someone had complained about the noise and the road blockage to the HOA, who came out to investigate, saw everything that they had done, and then reported them to the city. They got a hefty fine for every tree stump the city official found. The structural engineers said their retaining wall was not sound and it had to be redone, and it had to have regular inspection during its build. The HOA also told them that not only did they have to take down the 10-foot tall fence, but as they did not get prior approval, and because it was not an appropriate design, the HOA was also going to hit them with a hefty fine. Initially, the neighbor came to us for tattling, but we told them it wasn't us, as nothing they did affected us in any kind of way. For reference, our kids are early risers, so even starting before 7 o'clock didn't bother us. My husband then said that he tried to warn them that this would happen, but the neighbor told him to get lost and mind his business, so he did. Landscaping had started on Black Friday and was shut down for 3 weeks, while I guess they got things sorted out with the city and the HOA. And as of now, their backyard is still not finished. Wow, this is really funny to me, because if the neighbors had just listened to the husband of this story, then they literally could have avoided all of this trouble. But instead, they decided to be hostile and really weird to this guy, and that's just really not fair. Like, this guy really was genuinely trying to help out. He was trying to step up to the plate and say, hey, just so you know, I know a lot about all of this and you might be doing it wrong. And I know if I was doing construction on my backyard and my neighbor's like, hey, wait a second, the city might have a problem with this, I would stop what I was doing like immediately and be like, oh, okay, let me go figure that out real quick. And I can imagine their fines are probably very hefty from the HOA and the city. Like, both of those organizations probably do not play around, especially the HOA. So good for you and your husband for maliciously complying and basically stepping back and letting these people ruin their lives, because they absolutely deserve it after the way they talk to you and your husband. An entitled Karen calls the police on me because she doesn't like the fact that I go out at what she considers weird times. She even goes as far as claiming that I'm selling illegal substances around the neighborhood and that I must be stopped at all costs. But once she was proven wrong and shown that she was completely lying, she slapped me in the face in retaliation, resulting in her getting arrested for slapping a kid. Here's what happened. So I'm a 16-year-old from Serbia, and I live in the building next to my grandmother's. Our buildings are divided into several buildings. Strange, but each entrance functions like its own building, as if we only share walls, and you can't exit one entrance to get to another without leaving the building. Now, I live in the entrance facing another building. If I go around it, the other entrance leads to my grandmother's apartment. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed away 8 years ago, leaving my grandmother alone in her apartment. My parents, back then when this happened several years ago, saw one empty room and asked my grandmother if we could turn it into my private room because I needed privacy. Now, my grandmother was thrilled with the idea. After discussing it with me, we made the room. Since I followed my grandmother's rules and helped her, I didn't spend all my time at her place. Instead, I switched between apartments as needed. For example, I'd come home from school, leave my things, and then go to my grandmother's house to sleep. Then I would return home in the morning to have breakfast. I had a sort of routine for when I went where, with an accuracy of plus or minus an hour. Now, just to reiterate, I live in the entrance facing another building. If I go around it, the other entrance leads to my grandmother's apartment. Directly in front of my entrance is another entrance, and above it on the window, at least 70% of the time when I went out, there was an elderly woman. She always looked at me somewhat grumpily as I passed by, and sometimes I would glance at her, but I had headphones on and often wore a hoodie, so I just ignored her. When I had the second shift, I usually got home at about 8:20, and then I went to my grandmother's house at around 10:30, even though sometimes there would be exceptions. Now that woman was almost always there, but it never really bothered me. I mean, why would it? I only saw her for maybe 20 seconds a day. Well, once when I was leaving my house to go to my grandmother's without headphones or a hoodie, she finally said something that I honestly will never forget. She looks at me and says,
"You're leaving to get high again."
I looked at her and I said, "What?" She said to me,
"Every day you go out with a hoodie on your head in the dead of night, and I can clearly see what you're doing."
I then looked at her and I said, "What do you think I'm doing?" And she responded by saying that I'm dealing some kind of substance. She then demanded to know what I had in my backpack. But I said to her, "Well, not that it's any of your business, but I have a laptop and equipment." But this Karen was not having it. She looked at me and said,
"I think it's illegal substances. Open it and let me see it right now."
But I refused to do it. I said to her, "Leave me alone," and I just walked away. Now, the next day, she was waiting for me outside the entrance. She said to me,
"What's in that bag?"
I looked at her and I said, "You are a psychopath." She then said that if I don't tell her, she's gonna call the police. So I responded by saying, "Call whoever you want, I'm out of here." And I left while she was still yelling at me. The next day, 2 police officers were waiting for me outside the door with the Karen. The Karen then said,
"That's him, he's the local dealer."
I looked at them and I said, "What is going on?" The first police officer said that they received a report that illegal substance trafficking was happening here. I then looked at the second police officer and I said, is this for real? And they confirmed that even though it seemed absurd, they had to check it out. I then just said to him, "Okay, well, can you search me and let me go then?" The first police officer said, "We'll search you, but we won't let you go immediately because the lady said she saw you dealing." I said to them, "That lady is crazy, but you know what? Do what you have to do. I just want to get this over with." The first police officer searched me while the Karen was yelling about me being a dealer. The second officer asked me how old I was and if I had an ID, and I said to him, "I literally went to the building next door. I don't even have a wallet. Can I go to my apartment to get it? I'll even leave my backpack with a laptop as collateral that I'll return." The first officer then said, "Do you live here?" And I said yes, and that's when he said he'll accompany me to my apartment, but he won't enter. Well, when I returned to my apartment, my parents asked what I had forgotten. I said, "Can you please get my wallet with my ID inside? I want to buy some juice," which, by the way, I really did want to do that later. I returned to the police officer and my parents hadn't noticed anything quite yet. We returned outside and I showed my ID, which was valid. The second police officer explained that there's nothing in the backpack and that I had caused them no problems. The Karen then said,
"I know he has some substances. I saw him."
I then said to her, "Where? Where did you see me?" And at this point, the Karen made a mistake, pointing to a place under the cameras. I then said to her, "Okay, when was that?" The Karen then gave the exact date that she thought she saw me doing something sketchy. So I looked at her and I said, "Great, we can check the cameras." Realizing that her plan backfired, the Karen did the only sensible thing. She slapped me in the face. Well, to make a long story short, the first police officer handcuffed her and put her in the car while the Karen was screaming out loud. Now, for a small detail about me, I have a lot of pimples. So if you slap me, I ended up bleeding a little bit, which made it look a lot worse than it actually was, because honestly, it barely felt like a slap. The first police officer went and informed my parents. They came out and my mom wiped away the blood while my dad talked to the police. He asked the officer if he could send me to wash up, and the first police officer sent me away to do exactly that. Karen was convicted of assaulting a minor and misusing the police. Since we managed to hush up the whole story from the neighbors by some miracle, no one actually saw anything. The Karen received a punishment and a stern warning. Now, this Karen didn't go to jail, but she did get a good enough warning that if she did anything worse to me, then she would get a much worse punishment. But even after that incident, she could still be seen at her usual spot next to a window, glaring at me every time I walk by. Yeah, that entitled Karen was clearly just trying to cause problems. She saw some young kid coming in and out at hours that she didn't agree with, so she assumed the worst and accused you of something awful. Like she really tried to convince the police that you were doing something so sketchy. And that part alone is seriously something that would have driven me nuts. She wasted 2 police officers' time, and then when she was cornered because she knew she messed up, she slapped this kid in the face out of some kind of like weird retaliation. I kind of wish she got a bigger punishment, but I guess because she was old, she probably was able to get away with it to some extent. So good for you for standing up for yourself and not taking this garbage for a second, because this entitled Karen was completely out of line for hitting you like that, because you didn't do anything wrong and you definitely did not deserve that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My husband is dragging his feet to move with me for my new job, and after talking with him about this, as well as trying to find some kind of deadline or even some kind of compromise in some kind of way, I'm now at a point where I seriously don't even think he wants to be in the city we're gonna move to. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I are both 33 years old, and we've been together for more than 6 years. We met in a city on the East Coast of the United States, and we're both in training for our respective niche careers at the time. A few years in, my husband finished his training, but procrastinated at finding the next training position. He ended up with only one offer across the country on the West Coast because all other options were filled by the time he started his search. Now, I was mad because I have been pushing him for about a year to search for a job, which is the normal timeline in his field, and I ended up having to find ways to continue my training on the West Coast to stay with him. Well, it wasn't easy, but I did it by working fully remotely. We agreed then that when I'm done with my training and need to move for jobs that I like, he'll have to pay back by moving with me. It is much harder to find a job in my field, and most people actually ended up giving up on this career, but I got lucky, and I finally found a job this year. Unfortunately, despite trying very hard, it is not on the West Coast, and is not in a big city as my husband would prefer. I still expected that he would move with me as we agreed upon this, even if it means switching to a remote job, which would still be in the same career, but just not as fun as an in-person job would be. From the day I got the precious job offer till now, he hasn't shown any hints of being happy for me, and was in fact visibly and verbally unhappy with the outcome. He kept talking about other opportunities that I was interviewing for, and browsing for jobs or housing around those places, and he was dragging his feet on his job search around my offer. He was more disappointed than me when I eventually got rejected by those better alternatives, and of course not comforting me as a result. Now, I have accepted the offer, and he's still not engaging in my excitement for the new job, and continued to nitpick the area that we're gonna move to. He would say stuff like, "The restaurants are not good enough. I don't like the grocery store and nothing's happening here." And I've gotta be honest, this has been giving me a lot of stress lately. 2 days ago, he came up with the idea of negotiating with his current company to switch to mostly remote work. And this is an idea that I've been bringing up since before my job was finalized, but he kept saying that it was impossible. But now that I've accepted the offer, he finally seriously considered it, I guess. He planned to ask his boss about this in their meeting today, and have been talking about this with me every 2 hours. The strange thing is that he initially proposed 1 week in person and 3 weeks remote, but every time he brought it up, the in-person time increased. In the evening, he weirdly asked me how much my father was away for work when I was young. We are planning to have kids as soon as possible, and he knew my father being absent was the source of problems in my family. I told him it wasn't about the amount of time my father was away, but that he did nothing to make up for it when he was around. Well, as nighttime came around, his proposal progressed to 2 weeks in person and 2 weeks remote work, because that will be more likely accepted by his boss. I told him that 50-50 is a lot of time away from me, and he should treat this as a negotiation and not worry about what the boss wants, but rather what he wants. He somehow couldn't tell me what he wants and said that he has to think, with him grabbing a notebook and starting to write. Now, that is normal of him, so I just didn't push it and I just went to sleep. Well, today at noon, I was napping and I was woken up by him an hour before his meeting with his boss. He told me he is thinking about some options. The first would be 1 week and then 2 weeks, because this would have the smallest impact on other people's schedule. And the second was a 1.5 week and 2.5 week schedule, with his same rationale being about other people. I then interrupted him and asked why he is still talking about other people's needs. Like, what happened to the 1 week, 3 week schedule? He said that's the next option. And I asked him what he wants again, but he just fell silent. Well, at that point, I finally exploded. I said to him if he doesn't want to move, he can stay and we can get a divorce. I continued to repeat my complaints about the stress that he gave me, reminded him about our agreement, and told him that his progressive increase in time away from me in his proposals made me feel like he doesn't want to be with me. He argued that he is not increasing, but I reminded him what happened yesterday. He argued it was just 2 days more, to which I was like, what are you talking about? And I seriously just didn't even know what to say. He also said he didn't realize that's what he was signaling. I asked him why he's only talking about this with me right before the meeting, especially while I'm napping. He said he'll go delay the meeting, and I just just suppress the crazy amount of question marks that are about to explode in my brain. I told him I don't care anymore, and I pushed him to just get the meeting done. And that's where we're at right now. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of at a loss right now. It doesn't seem anything I said got through to him at all, and I still don't know what in the world he wants. What should I do? Wow, it really seems like your husband just doesn't care about your career, or he's just not willing to compromise and move with you for your job, which, by the way, is incredibly unfair. I'm sure you've gone through a lot of compromises on your end just to make sure he can get his training done and all this other stuff. And this is especially hurtful because you guys agreed to this in the first place. Like, you said, hey, if I get a job offer and we gotta move, you're coming with me, right? And he said, oh yeah, sure, I'll definitely do that. But like, are you gonna do that? Like, is that even gonna happen? Because right now it really seems like he's just completely lying. Like, now that he's faced with the reality of having to move for this job, he suddenly is like, oh man, these restaurants suck and nothing happens there, which has only prompted his question about how much time he can spend away from you. And honestly, that is just so disappointing. The original poster went on to say that if he doesn't move, then she is definitely making sure she's not having kids with him. She's already accepted the job, so she doesn't really have much of a choice in that regard. And honestly, I completely agree with her. Having kids in an environment like this sounds like an absolute train wreck, and I seriously think that would just make things more complicated in this scenario. So hopefully this works out, and hopefully your husband is able to come to his senses and at least pretend like he wants to support you in some kind of way. Because right now he's being very selfish, and this is really not fair for you and your career. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that if she pays for her sister's college, then I will stop favoring her younger sister with my money? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm gonna try and be as clear as possible. My mother had a fund that was supposed to be for both of the grandchildren. She told me multiple times it was for both of the kids. She also informed the girls that they have money, but she unfortunately passed away unexpectedly. My oldest daughter was the only one on the fund, and it is legally hers. But here's the thing, she didn't share it with her sister, and she now has a huge head start in life with it. Due to this money, she has been able to go to college debt-free and is going to buy a house soon. My husband and I have been scrambling to give as much money as possible to our youngest daughter since she really did get screwed over. Even with all of our help, she still needs to take out student loans. My youngest daughter is working while in college, and she found a student job that gives free housing. But the issue is that she needs a car for it. So my husband and I are going to buy her a car because turning down this job will result in a ton of extra debt for her. Well, my oldest daughter found out about us getting the car and she is angry. She's upset with us favoring our younger daughter and that she never got a car from us. But I pointed out that she doesn't need help financially at all. We argued for a while and I had had enough. I told her that if she pays for her sister's college, then I will stop favoring her sister with my money. Well, my older daughter then called me a jerk, and she isn't responding to anything that I send to her. So honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for the things that I said? What should I do? I don't think you're favoring your younger daughter at all. It sounds like your older daughter is literally working the system and taking money that's supposed to be for both her and her younger sibling. And sure, the fund only mentioned the older daughter, but it was very obviously expressed verbally from the grandmother while she was still alive that that money was supposed to be for both daughters, that it was not supposed to just go to one of them. And that part in and of itself is honestly so disappointing. Like, the older daughter absolutely knows about this, I would imagine, and she knew that this money would go to her and her sister. And from the sounds of it, it really seems like a lot of money was available to be used. So to that end, I understand where the original poster's coming from, where they're like, wait a second, our other daughter is getting completely screwed out of money. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your older daughter is being very selfish for not splitting the money, even though she knew where this money was supposed to go. Like, in my opinion, it would be different if that money was specifically meant for the older daughter, and like that's the only person that really was supposed to have it. But in this case, it really was supposed to be shared. So for her to run off and be like, oh man, I can't believe you're getting her a car, all the while she's got all this money to work with and has a giant head start in life, that is completely unfair, and I don't blame you for reprimanding her in the way that you did. Am I the jerk for reporting a local homeless woman to the police who stole and destroyed my food? Because right now, my girlfriend and my friends are calling me a jerk, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm from South Asia, and a few years ago, I moved to Australia for my master's degree. I completed it last year and have been working a full-time IT job ever since. Since I don't like grocery shopping, I rely on meal services, which provide you weekly meals and groceries on one day of the week. That way, you can cook and eat them anytime during the week. week. Usually, I get my box delivered to me anywhere between 3 to 6 in the morning, and I go and get it as soon as I can. This time, I got my delivery at around 8 o'clock as there were some delays, and I went to take it at 8:15 before I could leave for work at 9 o'clock. However, when I reached downstairs, my grocery box was nowhere to be found. I asked the reception of my building, and they said they saw someone keeping it but didn't notice anything after that, since the receptionist was an acquaintance. He offered to let me see the security camera footage to see what happened to it. In the footage, we saw a lady who came to use the lobby bathroom from outside, who then took the box when no one was looking and sneaked away with it. The receptionist asked me to contact the police just to lodge a complaint, and so I did. While talking to them, one of the other receptionists came back and asked what had happened, and as the footage was still on the screen, recognized the lady taking the box. She was a frequent visitor here to use the washroom. Now, on my street a little down the road is a homeless woman's shelter, and he told me that he knows she lives there and offered to come with me to see if she was anywhere near there so I could get my box. Well, we get there to find the lady sitting outside the shelter with my box, trying to poke her finger from the side of the tape area to see what's inside. When we confronted her, she said that it was hers, but we said we have contacted the cops and we'll point them to her if she doesn't return it. She seemed like she was under the influence, and angrily she just picked up the box and threw it at us, which caused it to open up and some of my ingredients fell out onto the floor, and she started shouting profanities at us as well as telling us to leave. I picked up what was left of my box and I went back to my building. I then proceeded to complete the report with the police and inform them of the situation, and also explained that we have footage of her stealing it. A few days later, I found out that they reached out to her and had taken her to the station, which had also caused the homeless shelter authorities to ban her from staying there ever again. And I thankfully also got a refund from the food company for my items. Now, when my girlfriend and my friends found out, they all started saying so much garbage and called me a jerk for reporting her. They are all Australian, so I don't know if this is some kind of cultural thing, but I felt like I was justified in what I did. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your friends and your girlfriend are completely wrong. You did not do anything wrong, and honestly, the fact that they want you to just let this kind of slide underneath a rug is insane to me and just absolutely inappropriate. Let's look at the facts real quick. This homeless woman not only stole your belongings, but she also destroyed it, while also shouting obscenities at you and telling you to get lost. Meanwhile, she's the person who comes into the lobby to use the washroom every single day. This is so backwards, it's not even funny. So I completely think you're justified in calling the cops, because if this can happen to you, it can literally happen to anybody. But don't get me wrong, I have a lot of sympathy for this homeless woman and her situation, but if you steal other people's property, then you absolutely deserve to get the consequences that come your way. That, in my opinion, is not the answer, and the fact that your friends are trying to justify it and be like, oh man, why would you do that? That is insane to me, and that just doesn't make any sense. So no, of course you're not the jerk. You are absolutely justified in calling the cops on someone who stole from you, and anyone who could possibly say otherwise is completely misguided. An entitled jerk demands that I give up my seat on a coach that I was taking across the country, claiming that he wants it more and that him and his wife deserve my seats no matter what. But I decided that enough was enough, so I stood up for myself and I shut this jerk down right where he stood. And I've honestly never felt better about putting somebody in their place in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this was a couple of months ago, and I was on my way to London and I took a night coach. For those unaware, a coach is like a luxury bus with seat belts, leather seats, Wi-Fi, plugs, toilets, and a lot of stuff like that. Well, like most coaches, you have to book tickets in advance, but you can pay extra to reserve a seat. Any other seat is first come, first serve. Where I get on is the first stop of the coach's route to London, so it's free reign to pick any seat not marked as reserved. I then go all the way back and choose to sit at the emergency exit. It has the most legroom, and there's some distance from the seat in front of me, so I can put the tray down and not break my neck watching a film on my tablet. Now, this was a 10-hour journey, and I was enjoying my time watching some films on my tablet and munching on some snacks for the journey. I'm so used to traveling on buses and coaches, so this honestly wasn't anything new. Well, 3 hours in, at this point it's now midnight, and the coach arrives at a station to let a lot of people on. At the time, I didn't notice that someone was trying to talk to me. It was a mix of me being focused on the film, as well as my headphones being noise canceling. He gave me a slight shake to get my attention, which he did. I took off my headphones and he asked me, "Can I sit there, please?" Now, I thought he wanted to sit next to me, and he asked me because my rucksack and my shopping bag was on the other seat. I'm not antisocial, so I I wasn't going to say no, but I decided to ask just to clarify. I said to him, "Oh, do you want me to move my stuff for you to sit down?" This guy looks at me and says, "No, I mean, can I have both of these seats for me and my wife?" I looked at him and I said, "No, because I'm currently sitting here." He said to me, "Yes, but we want to sit there, so give me these seats." I looked at him and I said, "You're not being funny, man, but I also want to sit here. That's the reason I sat here." But this guy just seriously wasn't getting it. He said to me, "I know, but I want to sit there now, so move please." I asked him where I was supposed to sit then, and he told me the seats in front of us are free. So I responded by saying, "Well, there you go, you can sit there then." But this guy responded by saying, "But that's not where I want to sit." I then responded quite bluntly. I said to him, "Look, I'm really sorry, but I'm not going to move from where I am just because you want to sit here with your wife, okay? If you reserve these seats, then fair enough. I would absolutely move. But these seats aren't reserved. So no, if you'll excuse me, I'm not going to move." At that point, I put my headphones back on, and that was the end of that. I saw him walk down to the front of the coach. No idea if he went to complain to the driver or what, but I didn't care as I knew I was in the right. Sure, I was quite rude at the end, but I wasn't going to give up my spot just because someone asked me to when I had already settled down in the seat. A couple minutes later, I did see him and his wife come back up to me, but they walked past and sat behind me. And what's funny is that they glared at me as they walked by. Now, it should be worth mentioning that he didn't have any visible or physical disabilities. If he needed legroom for disabled access, he should have said something. But even then, that's what the front of the coach is for. It is literally for disabled access. In fact, him and his wife were way skinnier than me, and I'm a pretty fat guy. So for the last 6 hours, they just sat behind me. I didn't hear what they were saying, but a part of me jokingly thought that they were planning to take over my seats if I went up and used the bathroom. But I never did, so thankfully I never found out. Wow, seriously? Like, what is wrong with people? Like, they could have gone about asking for this seat in several other ways. They could have asked nicely, they could have looked around for any other seats, they could have done anything other than the way they approached this. Because for this guy to walk up and be like, "Oh, you've got to move, I want that seat right now," like, that's obnoxious and there's no reason to act like that. Especially when there's seats literally all around the original poster, and there's plenty of spots that they could have sat and had no problems. So good for the original poster for standing up for themselves. Because personally, based on the way that guy was acting, I don't think you were rude at all, and I honestly think that guy absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Everyone at my job got mad when I took charge simply because no one else would do it. But as a result, they all complained to corporate, stating that I was rude and nasty in the time of crisis, and that I was not kind in the face of disaster. So I decided to maliciously comply by not stepping up to the plate when another accident happened, resulting in all those people who complained about me getting fired. Here's what happened. So about 14 years ago, I worked for a major petroleum company in Indianapolis. Over my 4 years there, I applied myself, and I gained enough knowledge to be more knowledgeable than most of the senior guys. Well, one day stuff hit the fan, and we were looking at a potential major spill because the packing in a pump had failed. Nobody was doing anything, and I'm the kind of person who likes to take charge, so I just started barking orders. Now, you have to understand, this would have been an EPA nightmare, so there was no time to be nice. Well, the other employees went and complained, and I was called into the manager's office and was told about the complaints, how I was just barking orders and I didn't ask nicely. He told me that I did the right thing, and that next time, if it wasn't going to be a major issue, to just give them enough rope to hang themselves. So I thought to myself, okay. So the next time I saw that they had the valve set in such a way that 2 soap tanks would overflow, and while it's not an EPA big deal, it would bring scrutiny from the health, environmental, safety, and security decision of our company. I mentioned to them that they might want to check the valve lineup because something just didn't look right. Well, they told me to mind my own business. And as it was time for me to go home, I called the manager from my car and said that you should probably start heading to the terminal because 2 tanks are about to overrun. I tried to tell them, but they told me to mind my own business. Well, I didn't get halfway home before a neighbor to the facility came knocking on the door saying liquid was overflowing 2 tanks. As the only first responder not involved in the incident, I had to return to the facility and supervise a cleanup until corporate came in about 3 hours later. All 3 were put on probation and then eventually fired for more screw-ups. Now, the beauty of this was that after that incident, they were told to follow what I said explicitly and never again complain that someone doesn't say please and thank you in a crisis. They all hated me until the day they left. And you want to know why? It's because I was the only person to take charge when no one else would step up and do it. Honestly, good for the original poster for sticking to their values and doing exactly what they need to do in a time of crisis. Like, here you are stepping up to the plate and taking care of something that could have been massive. And as a point of reference, the EPA stands for Environmental Protection Agency, and I'm willing to bet you definitely don't want them knocking on your door, especially if there's a major spill from a petroleum company. It's also really funny to me that these coworkers are like, wow, I can't believe you talked to us like that. You were so mean about how you said that. And it's like, what are you talking about? This is literally an emergency and you want me to be like super nice to you? Like, I'm sorry, but we need to get stuff done, because if we don't, it's gonna be tragic and we're all gonna lose our jobs. Or potentially even worse. Like, are you serious right now? It sounds like the coworkers were just being super soft, and there was like no reason to be so offended over what this guy was doing. So truly good for this guy for stepping up and doing what needed to get done, because clearly nobody else had the guts to step up when it counted. Am I the jerk for getting my neighbor and client banned by all local babysitters after they tried to slander my name online? Here's what happened. So over the holidays, I got the chance to go to the Caribbean with my neighbors as their nanny. My parents were not thrilled, but it was after Christmas, so they let me go. The deal was pretty simple. It was 10 days at an all-inclusive resort. I would share a room with the kids and take care of them for 7 days and nights. In return, I got $500 and 3 days to myself, and the rooms would be adjoined. My parents insisted I get everything in writing, so there was no mistake. Basically, we agreed that I would work 2 days and take 1 day off, and I would do this over and over again. And I thought to myself, no problem. And I even checked out the included activities with any excursions that I might like. On my 3rd day off, I had planned to go scuba diving. I got up early and went on my excursion. When I got back, the parents were mad that I had left without warning, but I reminded them that we had a deal, and they said they had met another couple there and were going golfing, and that I screwed up their plans. But I seriously don't know why they made plans on one of my free days. They were upset all the way home. When we got back, they posted how irresponsible I was. One of the other families called me to get my side of the story, so I sent them a picture of the deal that we agreed on. They said they knew I wouldn't do what I was being accused of. Then they started commenting on the post made by my neighbors, and my parents also joined in on this. But I think everyone thought they were just protecting me. So now it's a big deal, and everyone knows that they tried to change our deal without talking to me, and some of the other babysitters or their parents are now saying they won't babysit for my neighbors anymore. Now, I feel bad about it because they paid a lot for my vacation, and if they had asked about it, I would have probably switched my excursion to the last day. Anyways, they are upset that I narked them out, which I didn't even do. They said that I could have talked to them if I had a problem, even though I'm not the one that made this public. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? It is so rich of them to be like, wow, if you had a problem, you could have talked to me in private. Meanwhile, they post all this garbage online about you not doing your job. Like, seriously, what in the world is going on? They called you irresponsible and all this other stuff online, and then they get upset like, wow, you didn't have to make this public. It's like, what are you talking about? You tarnished my reputation. That is not okay, and you're not gonna get away with that. And here's the thing, they completely went back on your deal. I mean, thank goodness you had everything in writing to some degree. I'm assuming you had some kind of text message of some kind, or something to basically notate that yes, you had this agreement and this is how it was specifically set up. So for them to turn their backs on you and start posting about you online while simultaneously being upset that their side of the story was completely wrong and they were actually just trying to screw you over, in my opinion, is completely hilarious. They literally want to be both victim and executioner in the same sentence. If they wanted to renegotiate the terms of your agreement, they should have brought you along and said, hey, we need to change just a few things. And then, just like any other reasonable person in the world, you probably would have been like, sure, we can change that up. That's not that big of a deal. But instead, they're like, wow, on your day off, we went golfing and you messed things up for us. It's like, no, I didn't. You did that yourself. These parents are weird, and honestly, none of this is your fault. So truly, you are not the jerk, and I really think your neighbors got exactly what they deserved. Am I the jerk for lying to my family for 2 years by not revealing that me and my husband bought a house by the lake? Because right now, after they found out, they're calling us greedy and are demanding the address to that house, with my mom even asking for spare keys. And right about now, I'm seriously unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. A few years ago, my husband and I told our relatives that we wanted to buy a country house house by the lake. In our country, almost everybody lives in apartments, so our families were very happy. My mother immediately decided that she wanted to arrange a vegetable garden in the yard of this house. And my husband's sister said that it would be a great place where she could take her children for the summer. My sister started fantasizing about family picnics, and my husband's brother jokingly said that this would be a good place to get drunk on the weekends. Well, when we heard all of this, we were both terrified. We did not want any of this in the slightest. We wanted to have a place where we could truly feel at home, a place where we could rest, and a place where we could arrange everything to our taste. We wanted a place where we could raise our future children, where we could have peace and quiet and not deal with family squabbles. In the end, we decided to tell them that the deal had fallen through and there would be no house. After all, it is none of their business. We were the only ones buying the house, and it has nothing to do with them. Plus, we just didn't need to tell them anything. We only told the truth to our best friends, who we were sure would not spoil anything. The house is really beautiful, and my friends and I often go there on the weekends. Well, 2 years have passed by, and my sister found out about the house by accident because one of my friends posted a photo from there. Now our families are furious and call us greedy. Many of the relatives don't want to talk to us until we give them the address, with my mom even asking for spare keys. And this is exactly the hype that we tried so hard to avoid. Now, I don't think we're jerks, but my husband is starting to hesitate about what we should have done. So truly, are we the jerks in this scenario? What should I do? Not only are you not the jerks, but if you seriously want to keep your peace, I would not give out any spare keys to your house. I don't even care if it's your mother. Literally, don't give it to anybody. Here's the thing. If your relatives don't want to talk to you until you give them access to the house, then I think that's probably like a big problem solved. These people see this house as a party house or as a house that they can slowly take over. But this isn't some family property that anybody can just show up to. This isn't a place where someone can live and get drunk at on the weekends. This is your place and your place alone. And literally no one else in your family has any say over what you can and can't do with this house. Like with the way they're acting, I don't blame you for a second for not wanting to tell them about your purchase. Because right now they're giving you this weird ultimatum of how they're just not going to talk to you unless you give them the address. Like, I'm sorry, that's insane behavior and you do not owe them that kind of information. It seems like your extended family tries to claim anything anyone else gets in their life, and this is one of those situations where they're like, wait a second, what about me? But then I would want to ask back, yeah, exactly, what about you? You don't own this house, and there's a reason I didn't tell you about it. Because literally, this is the way you would act. And I don't know about the original poster, but I would not want family like this over all the time at a place that I would want to call home. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your extended family is incredibly selfish and very entitled, and I simply don't blame you for not wanting to deal with them in the slightest. Would I be the jerk if I decided to break up with my boyfriend after he didn't do anything for my birthday or even Valentine's Day? Because right now, that's the reality I'm faced with, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for nearly 4 years, and we've been living together for almost 3. It was fine until March of 2023, and that is where we kind of started struggling. Now, my birthday is a little more than a week before Valentine's Day, so I don't ever expect anything for Valentine's Day because of how close they are together. However, I made it clear at the beginning of the relationship that if we don't celebrate my birthday, then I would like to do something for Valentine's Day instead. My boyfriend has always struggled with getting gifts, even for his own family, so I've been trying to be patient and understanding with his lack of gifts on all gift-giving holidays. There have been birthdays and Christmas where I've gotten absolutely nothing, and sometimes I get something small. This year, however, he didn't even bother booking the day off of work. I even reminded him before his job's booking deadline to book my birthday and our anniversary off. I hardly even saw him during my birthday, and I went out and bought my own cake and spent my night completely alone. His mom got me a little gift, and honestly, I didn't even care what it was. I was just happy that someone was thinking of me for my birthday. I hope that maybe he would make it up to me on Valentine's Day, because he was kind of talking about it like he had something planned. I felt like an idiot for even getting my hopes up because I saw him for a whopping 10 minutes that day. He spent the morning out with his friends, and when I came home, he was asleep with a brand new PS5 downloading some games. He said that he was going to get groceries while out with his friends, but didn't get anything but the PS5. So he bought a gift for himself on Valentine's Day. Any plans that he talked about just didn't happen like usual. Now, it doesn't even matter if I tell him exactly what I want. He's not going to do it or get it. Then, even during the time leading up to my birthday, he was only talking about things things that he wants to get himself, like a PS5. So honestly, am I being too greedy by being upset about this? I'm just tired of feeling like I'm not as important to him as he is to me. Would it be okay if I broke up with him over this? What should I do? I think you hit the nail on the head with that last sentence, because from the outside looking in, it really seems like he does not prioritize you at all. Like he just straight up ignored your birthday and Valentine's Day, even though you've made it very clear that if we're not going to celebrate one of them, then you want to celebrate the other one. And also, you're not asking that much of him. You're literally asking for the bare minimum in a relationship, and I seriously just don't think it's that hard to try and make plans for your significant other in this way, especially for Valentine's Day. Like, there is no good excuse for that. That's a very famous holiday, at least in America, and there's no reason he should have missed that at all. Like, the bar is so low in this scenario, it's practically on the ground. So no, of course you're not the jerk in this situation. Your boyfriend is being absolutely inconsiderate of your feelings and of the holidays that are in front of him, and if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be reconsidering everything that I know about him. Several entitled customers demand that I take pictures of their table that I'm serving, even when I'm incredibly busy doing my job, and I'm honestly so sick of it that I'm now starting to say no. Here's what happened. Okay, so things are really starting to get out of hand. I don't mind taking people's photos. If it adds to their night and I have the time, why not? But it's now multiple tables a night, and it's now rarely an appropriate time. No exaggeration, but 4 out of the 5 tables that ask me do so when I'm carrying a stack of dirty dishes or a tray full of drinks, or when I'm running food to another table and I'm very clearly and visibly busy. Half the time it's a table in someone else's section, just like a few nights ago. I was running drinks during the rush for another server, and after I delivered one table's drinks, they immediately asked me to take their picture. I still had multiple drinks on my tray, and when I told them that they'd have to wait for their server to return, one woman legitimately scoffed. I've had people attempt to interrupt me while I'm taking another table's order, and I've had people interrupt me while in the middle of taking their table's order, just to take a stinking photo. Last night, I reached my limit. I was passing by a table in another section, and a man grabbed my arm and handed me his phone. Now, I knew what he wanted, but instead of acquiescing to his non-request, I slipped the phone in my apron and I kept walking. I went and stood in the kitchen for 60 seconds, just enough time for him to sweat, and of course, he was waving frantically from the table as I approached. His dining companions were cracking up, but he was not happy. He said to me, "I wanted you to take our picture, not walk off with my phone." So I looked at him and I said, "Oh, really? You just handed me your phone and didn't say anything." So I assumed it was a gift. I placed his phone on the table and then I walked away. And of course, I immediately told my coworkers. And at the end of the night, the server told me that the same guy later did the exact same thing to him. And the server told the guy that he would have thought the guy had learned his lesson by now, considering the first server the guy did that to walked off with his phone. And the guy was not amused by that either. And then 99% of the time, it's older folks who are doing this, clearly in their late 50s and up, which is prime time for this kind of obnoxious, entitled, oblivious behavior. I know it's important for them to document every activity for their Facebook friends, but it is not my priority at all, and I'm honestly so sick of it. Yeah, that seriously sounds really obnoxious. Like, these people are being very disruptive, and they're grabbing you right when you literally have no time to do anything for them. Whether you're delivering food or at least helping another customer, or trying to get somebody's order, to have them come up and be like, "Hey, can you take our picture?" without any kind of acknowledgement that maybe you're a little too busy for that is incredibly rude. I think the way you handled that one guy, though, is absolutely brilliant. This guy didn't even ask you for a photo. He just handed you his phone and just expected you to what, read his mind? Like, I'm sorry, sir, I'm not a telepath. I can't read your thoughts because, trust me, your thoughts are probably stupid. So truly good for you for starting to say no to these people, because honestly, I think it's time for you to put your foot down, because these people have been very disrespectful of your time and completely ignoring the fact that you're on the clock. And in my opinion, you absolutely do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. An entitled manager acts like a complete jerk to my mother-in-law, refusing to give a store credit to us after his employees delivered our food incorrectly to our house. But eventually, we decide that enough is enough, as we choose to take the corporate route, forcing this jerk of a manager to comply with our reasonable request. And I'm seriously so blown away by how rude this guy truly was. Here's what happened. So this past Sunday, my mother-in-law had ordered pizza for everyone at her house. This is something she does regularly for her family. She's very kind and generous, often taking the younger kids into her home on weekends, so the kids and parents in our family have room to breathe for just a little bit. That doesn't leave much free time for herself because she works as a full-time nurse during the week. We always thank her, we make sure she doesn't need need a break that week and let her know how much we appreciate her. This weekend though, she went above and beyond. She had the 15 and 12-year-old girl cousins and my 6-year-old son from Friday to Sunday night. All of this while bringing him to the birthday party we planned and set up for our own son on Saturday, and then offering to keep him afterwards. I mean, she really is amazing. So back to the pizza. She likes to order from that hut that makes pizza, and normally there aren't any problems. This time though, when her food was delivered, the pizzas were cold and they had forgotten 4 sodas. She was rightfully upset and called the store to see if they could still deliver the drinks or if she could get a discount or some kind of refund. Now, it really should be noted that my mother-in-law was very respectful. So when she called the store on speakerphone, what I heard in response was honestly mind-blowing. My mother-in-law started off by saying, "Do you know if the driver who just dropped off our order could bring the sodas back? I think they may have forgotten them." The man on the other end of the line, who is the jerk of this story, responded to my mother-in-law by saying, "Nah, I can't do that." My mother-in-law said, "Okay, could I get a refund or something like that instead?" This jerk said, "Your driver was through DoorDash, so you'd have to talk to them about that." My mother-in-law at this point was confused. She said, "Oh, I didn't know that you guys did that. Don't you guys deliver?" The guy on the other line then says, "Yeah, well, when it gets too busy, DoorDash just covers our other deliveries." My mother-in-law then said, "Wait, I paid a $5 delivery fee to the restaurant, not to DoorDash. Where does that money end up going?" The jerk on the other line then loses his patience. He says to her, "Look, what do you want?" My mother-in-law says, "Well, I was hoping for some answers on my delivery and a discount or a refund. Is there a manager that I could speak with?" The jerk on the other line then screamed out that he was the manager and then reiterated, "What do you want?" Now, this is about the time me and the cousins noticed his tone shift. We were like, "Whoa, what is going on here?" As it's right about here that things really started to escalate. My mother-in-law then asked if she could have his name, and this jerk said, "Nah, you don't need my name." So my mother-in-law circled back and said, "Can I just get a store credit or something like that?" But this entitled jerk once again screamed out, "Nope, can't do that." With all of us in the background, now joined by my younger brother-in-law who also lives there, we remarked by saying, "Why is he being so rude? They were the ones who forgot our drinks. We weren't even rude to them." My mother-in-law says the magic words. She says, "I think I'm just gonna call corporate, thanks." And it's right about then that this entitled jerk's tune suddenly changed. He took a pause and then he said, "You still want that store credit?" My mother-in-law said, "Yes," and then she recited off her number. But before she could even get the full number out, this entitled jerk interrupted her and said, "What's your number again?" And it's right about here that my mother-in-law's voice raised because she was getting fed up with his rudeness. She said to him, "I was just saying it," and then she said it all over again. The entitled jerk then cuts in and says, "It's credited. You need anything else?" And my mother-in-law once again said, "Yes, I need the number to corporate if you have it." But even then, this entitled jerk said, "Nope, can't give it to you," with my mother-in-law eventually saying, "Then no, you can't help me." And then she hung up. Now, honestly, this whole thing really made me upset because of how much my mother-in-law had done for the family all weekend. So truly, to that entitled jerk, shame on you. You should not be in a professional position and speak to people that way. As an ex-pizza place worker myself, I understand how rough the job can be, but that's no excuse to lash out to a customer who simply wants what they ordered or a refund if you can't provide it, because this guy's behavior was completely inappropriate. Yeah, that guy was being a massive jerk. It's very obvious that his store messed up, and they're the reason why this did not go out correctly. Like, he was just defensive right off the bat, getting incredibly rude and snappy with his mother-in-law, while also like refusing to give a store credit when they messed up. And I don't believe that for a second that this is somehow DoorDash's problem. I'm 100% convinced that it's the pizza place's fault, and they're the ones that have to pick up the tab. And for this manager to act this way is just so uncalled for. So good for you and your mother-in-law for getting this taken care of, but hopefully some kind of justice was brought down on that manager, because the way he was talking was completely inappropriate, and your mother-in-law absolutely did not deserve that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to babysit last minute and ruining the parents' important plans, all because their son seemed older than what they said they were? Because right now, everybody's angry with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I'm a 19-year-old female, and I've been babysitting occasionally for a few families for the past 2 years. A week ago, a new family got my numbers from one of the families that I babysit for a lot. I told them up front that I have this rule where I only babysit boys that are 10 years of age and under, but when it comes to girls, the age isn't an issue for me. They told me they had 2 boys ages ages 9 and 10, so I agreed. They told me that they had very important plans the day I am to babysit, and I reassured them that I am very professional, and I will be there on time and all that good stuff. The day came and I went to their house, and the dad greeted me. Then he took me to their living room to meet their boys. To my surprise, the boys looked like no 9 or 10-year-old I've ever met. One looked about 12 years old, and the other one looked like he could be 15 or 16 years old. Both of them were taller than me, and the older one even had some visible facial hair. All that was going through my head was these parents lied to me about the ages, because I lead with my rule about ages, and they lied to me just so I would accept. When the mother came down and greeted me, I asked to speak with her in another room, and I told her I cannot babysit. I was also truthful about the reason, and she was livid. We got into a back and forth where I basically said that I feel they lied about the ages, and she said to me, "Oh, so you want me to show you their birth certificate to believe me?" And at that point, I was kind of mad because she was immediately livid, and I also felt like I was fooled. So I said, yeah, some proof would really help. She stomped off to the living room, and I could hear her screaming at her husband. She said, "Get this jerk out of my house. I will stay with the boys." I walked out of the kitchen towards the front door, and I announced that I'm leaving before I stepped out. Later that night, the mom of the family who recommended me called and was pretty angry. I explained that these boys looked so much older than they were said to be, and there was no way they weren't lying. She said maybe one is actually 11, but the other truly is 9 years old, and that they just look like they're so much older. To be fair, the mother was tall and the dad was huge. It's actually the reason I asked to confront the mother and not the father. But these boys weren't just tall, they also looked older face-wise. Also, babysitting two strange boys who were both taller and clearly so much stronger than me doesn't feel safe, which is why I have the age rule in the first place. There was no way that their mother didn't realize her boys looked so much older than boys their ages. I feel like it was something she should have mentioned, especially after I told her my rules about who I'm going to be babysitting. I felt like I was justified, but I also felt bad about ruining their plans. Everyone involved is angry with me, and I wonder if maybe I was overreacting and should have just babysat since I agreed. Because right now, I don't know what to think, and I seriously don't know what to do. No, honestly, this is not your fault. I don't think you're the jerk at all. I personally think the mom and the dad were completely lying in this scenario, and that's why the mom immediately, like right off the bat, got incredibly upset at you. And that's because you try to stick to your boundaries and stick to your plan. And I also don't blame you for not wanting to babysit any boys over the age of 10. For your own safety, that makes a lot of sense. And the boys you're describing do not sound like kids at all. I mean, one of them nearly had facial hair. I don't know about you, but personally, I've never met a child that has facial hair like that, although I'm sure there's some kind of anomaly out there that maybe I've just never seen before. So if these parents didn't want their night ruined, then they should have been a bit more honest, because clearly they were trying to pull one over on you, and I don't think you deserve that in the slightest. My girlfriend has gone off the rails, as she is blatantly taking advantage of me and refusing to pay me anything towards utilities, while also living in my house rent-free. And I'm now at the point where I'm asking her to leave and move out, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I have been having some serious issues. I asked my girlfriend to move out a couple of weeks ago because I didn't feel like she respects me or my house, and I feel frequently taken advantage of. For reference, I bought a house by myself a couple of years ago when I was partnered in a large business. I didn't recommend that we break up, but just took some space so that she could shoulder some of her own responsibilities financially, just to see what it actually takes to be fully financially responsible as a person. My mortgage is $2,300, and I work from home, so my utilities like the power I cover myself. I've got a car and a small loan that I'm paying off, and overall, my bills are roughly $4,500 more, and since she's moved in, it's maybe like $4,800, and that's not including business expenses, and this is all give or take a couple hundred depending on utilities. Before she moved in, she said that she could afford to give me $600 a month, which basically was $150 a week. I even said that I would take $500 if she could do it all at once, and I would legitimately use this money to take care of her. And that includes absolutely everything: food, utilities, even the occasional herb that I get for myself. I make enough to get by, but not enough to take care of someone else 100%. I make about $65,000 after taxes, and it's my first year as a solo business owner, and I still haven't paid my taxes yet, so I can't say 100%. But either way, I still drive DoorDash in my awful little 3-cylinder gas saver, and this is when I'm not busy doing other things. I work 40 to 60 hours a week regularly, but I love running my own business. Now, back to the point. She's not given me anything in the past 2 months, and she even took a flight to go visit family, and that was cool and everything like that. But when I recommended that she get her own place again, she started throwing stuff and just screaming. There was some minor damage to 2 of the walls and a few holes from picture frames. And then she threw my pasta roller and put a dent in the hardwood floor. I'm not saying her mental health is more important than my house, but after throwing several smaller objects, she was slowly starting to grab bigger objects, and so I eventually tried to stop her by grabbing her hand. And when I did that, this 110-pound girl started punching me in the face. She hit me 4 times really quick before I let go. For reference, I'm 5'9" and 190 pounds, and I'm in great shape, and I've never been more shook up by someone hitting me. I just wanted her to stop throwing my stuff. I eventually lost it. I backed away screaming, "What in the world is wrong with you? You actually just hit me." I started screaming some nasty words while I was angry, how her best friend was trashy, how I wanted her out this instant, how she was lazy and ungrateful, and how she needed anger management, and that her parents didn't finish raising her. When she told me that I was being crazy, I realized I indeed was being pretty crazy, and I stormed off downstairs in my office to be alone. I was extremely upset that I had lost my temper, but was shocked that she had hit me as well. I was really going through it emotionally. Now, for a bit of backstory on this best friend of hers, they are constantly going out weekly and drinking, or just going on day trips weekly. They've also worked together and have been fired from multiple jobs together, and this is due to both of them drinking on the job. And I was hyping her up to look for a new job because she hated her current one so much. Now, here's the thing. I'm cool with having fun. I just can't get my head around going out with friends when she is so broke, she doesn't even have the funds to afford new windshield wiper blades. The next day, there was a sorry card and some flowers, but nothing was said about it for another 24 to 32 hours. That is, until I was at the gym and she asked me if I was just going to ignore it. I told her I was waiting for her to give it to me so we could talk, and I got home and I came home to the card ripped up and the flowers in the trash instead. I pulled it out and the card literally just said, "I'm really sorry, I love you so much." And I pulled the flowers out because I thought they were nice. We talked for a bit and things calmed down just a little bit, and communication has been alright for about a week or so. Well, today rolls by and the same thing happens, where she didn't give me any money, which is something we agreed upon last Friday that she would do. Also, I have to force her to do chores and she's got an attitude about it the entire time. I literally put all her clothes away because they were just thrown all over the guest room. So today we make plans to go to the store after she got back from the gym today at about 12 o'clock. She texted me that she doesn't want to go to the store and that it makes her anxious and she will just send me some money. And this was all at 1:50 p.m. too. She also stated that she was going with her friend to go get some lunch, this being the same friend that I don't like. So I told her that I had just wanted to spend some time with her because I only needed to grab a bag of protein, and that I was only really going so she could grab some stuff herself. And this is because all she does is complain about being hungry the day before and that there was nothing else to eat in the house. I also said that I wasn't going to spend that time by myself shopping for the both of us when I have over 2 weeks worth of protein, veggies, and carb sources that I'm going to use for myself at the house. She just replied by saying, "LOL, really?" And I asked her what she thought was so funny. At this point, it's like 4 p.m. now, and she's like posting pictures of her and her friend's family, as well as several of her friends playing a board game, as well as drinking some drinks. And when I saw that, I just got more annoyed. She told me I was being selfish, and I snapped back by saying, "It's not like I was waiting to hang out with you all morning. I mean, I pushed back work on her day off, but she'd literally rather go play games with her friends and drink and hang out with them instead of me. And she's got to go to work with them tomorrow." I then also reminded her that she's given me nothing towards any bills for over 2 months, and that she should probably get her own place, because then she might be a little bit more grateful for all the things I've done for her. Well, she left for the gym and came back 8 hours later, and I just cleaned the guest room out and asked her to sleep in there. Honestly, I am so upset to be in this position. I feel like I'm going to lose a friend, but I honestly cannot let someone take advantage of me like that. I know I'm far from perfect, and she says asking where she is mad controlling, but I just think it's common courtesy to let your significant other of over a year, who you also live with by the way, to let them know exactly what's going on in your life. I mean, I didn't know what was happening for almost 5 hours. Look, I love her, but between the hitting, the lack of motivation, the awful trashy friends, I mean, should I just get her out of here? Am I a complete jerk? I felt like I was asking the bare minimum, but she can't even give me that. What should I do? I can confidently say that your girlfriend does not care about you, and she is using you for a place to stay. Like seriously, let's look at the facts real quick. This lady is not thinking thinking about you in the slightest. She's using you and basically like getting out of paying any kind of bills. She has physically hit you, which is a massive red flag. She also is neglecting you and is refusing to talk to you in some kind of like functional way. Like that's insane to me and there's no good excuse for that. For reference, by the way, the original poster is 32 and his girlfriend is 31. Like the way your girlfriend's acting, it really seems like she's stuck in her teenage years because her behavior is so atrocious. This is not fair for you in the slightest and it puts you in an awful position because clearly you love this lady, like you obviously have some kind of connection with her and you want to try and make this work, but she is taking advantage of you left and right and she's doing nothing to improve the situation. And that in and of itself is just completely unfair. So I know if I was in your shoes and I had a girlfriend acting like this, I would not feel bad about saying, look, you've got to go. You got to find your own place and figure your own stuff out because you can't just live in my house rent free and then also treat me like garbage and hit me and throw things around my house and expect me to want to keep you around. And if anything, with all things set aside, the fact that she punched you in the face repeatedly, as well as threw things around the house, in my opinion, is unacceptable. That is an absolute deal breaker for me, and there's no way she's ever gonna stay there if I was in your shoes, because she absolutely could have been arrested for a lot less than that. And in my opinion, you deserve a much better relationship than what your girlfriend is currently giving you. I have a guest who has overstayed her welcome and has completely taken advantage of me in a way that I never expected, and I'm now at such a loss that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female, and I am trying to figure out a way to tell a guest of mine who's 38 years old that she needs to leave my apartment. For a bit of background, I only knew this lady for about a year through mutual friends. We were not extremely close, but had simple, cordial interactions. One day, the lady wanted to hang out at my place, which turned into frequent visits. She then told me that she was in the process of finding a new apartment, but the move-in date for the one that she wanted was 2 weeks away, and she would need to go out of town to stay with family and come back. So I offered this lady to stay with me instead in the meantime, and I now regret this decision. I should have known better and found out her character the hard way. I truly thought there was no issue with her because she does have a good job and she is 38. Well, it's been about 2 months now, and it doesn't seem like this lady is going anywhere. She brought many of her clothes and items. She goes to work and comes back, and I'm now feeling so uncomfortable in my own apartment. And in addition, this lady is apparently very nosy and wants to know everything, every single step outside that I take. The lady is always overwhelming me with her life drama to kind of make me feel bad too. I later learned that she is a people user, as she's actually told me that she stayed with other people over the past few months. I am struggling to figure out how to ask her to leave without turning into the bad guy. I am in a long distance relationship, so I thought about asking my man to come, but I am convinced this lady will not leave until the day of and will want to come back around. So I'm honestly at such a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first things first, I think you need to get the idea of being the bad guy out of your head completely. You need to embrace the fact that she's probably gonna have some kind of reaction from this, and that is honestly not your problem. She is invading your space. She said she was gonna be there for what, 2 weeks? And that has slowly morphed into 2 months. This lady could obviously find another place to live because you're not the only person that's had to deal with this in the past. So any notion of like, oh, but she has nowhere to go, that thought is a complete lie and you need to chase that out of your head. Because the fact of the matter is that this lady is using you. She is using you as a free place to stay, as well as having a place to stay without any kind of rent. You've also hit the nail on the head when you identified her as a people user. Like there's very clearly a pattern here, and it's unfortunate that you had to learn this the hard way. Also, all this drama that she's trying to share with you, as well as her being like, oh man, I need a new apartment, but I don't know how to get there. Like it's all manipulation tactics. She's only sharing that to try and make you feel guilty, so you will feel forced to try and let her stay in your apartment just a little bit longer. So honestly, in my opinion, it's time to start communicating your boundaries and explain to her upfront exactly how you feel. It's time to lay it all out on the board and say, this is how it is. Give her a timeline of when she needs to move out so that you can have your apartment back, because this is not a permanent engagement. She cannot stay here forever. That is not what you agreed upon. And if she throws a fit, well then fine, throw a fit. But do that while you're packing your bags and getting out of my house, because what she's doing right now is completely inappropriate. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be making these steps much sooner than later. My entitled Karen of a mother walks out on my family anytime someone says anything she doesn't like, leaving the family for months on end and making me and my father feel like garbage in the process. And after dealing with this for so long, I'm seriously at such a loss, and I really don't know how to deal with my mother, or how to move on. Here's what happened. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own stories. Okay, so for a bit of backstory, I am a mousy 18-year-old female, and I'm finishing up high school and my 2-year degree. I am first in my class. I've been awarded many honors for my academic achievement and athletic ability, and have participated in academic camps, including a month-long summer camp where I focus on mathematics, as well as several other camps at universities across the nation, and this will be relevant later on. I live with my mother and father, and it is because of them that I work so hard. Now, moving on to the story, I'm beginning to feel resentment towards my mother because every time I offer constructive criticism, she just leaves. She's done this since I was a little kid, and has done this more to my dad than to me. If you act sarcastically towards her, she takes it as a real statement. If you say you're crazy while laughing after she said a joke, she thinks that you are insulting her. All of this can be avoided if you know that she acts negatively towards it, but like in all healthy relationships, one thing can't be avoided, and that thing is constructive criticism. Beginning in January of 2023, her demeanor towards criticism became increasingly more hateful after one event. My first and only boyfriend, a boy whom my mom and father quite literally forced me to date originally, made a dire mistake. I love him dearly, but he made the mistake of using a phrase with my mom that is a no-go in our house. My mom was joking with him, and he jokingly said, "Oh, get out of here." And it was like the world came crashing down. My mom instantly hated him, and once she hates someone, there is no turning back. Regarding her immediate hatred towards him, in the following weeks, I was keeping him up to date on if relations were getting any better. I made the mistake in our private messages of sending a certain meme that involves Carl Weezer from Jimmy Neutron that more or less says that she is mad. What I didn't anticipate was that later, my mom, in her typical fashion of being controlling, went through my phone. She saw the meme and it was immediate hysteria. My mom was screaming, crying. She was throwing items at me, telling me how awful of a daughter I had been. I was told that I was an ungrateful jerk. She told me that they had been lying to me about my IQ and that I was not actually that smart. Then, without listening to my explanations of the meme, she packed her things and then she left. And I don't know why, but I was surprised. She had done this several times before, but it was never towards me. It was always me and my dad or just my father. For weeks, she would not even talk to me. She stayed gone for a month, unwilling to say a word or listen to a single thing. During that month, I was home alone many nights, from where she let my father know where she was staying, and he went to see her. Those long nights, I stayed on calls with my boyfriend, who seemed to blame himself for the situation. He encouraged me to go stay with his parents who live nearby, but I felt like such a burden. I didn't want to ruin anyone else's life. If my own mother didn't love me, then who could? A few months went by and my mom came back, and she just pretended like nothing happened. According to her, she had left to lick her wounds. I got accepted into the prestigious month-long summer camp, and during my time there, I was struggling. It was math like I had never seen before. It was proofs and topology. And if you don't know what that is, in my eyes, calculus is elementary in comparison. In the midst of this, my mom texted me almost every day to say that she wanted to begin filling out college applications while I was there. I told her I didn't want to do that just yet, and not thinking as I should have been, I told her that she was stressing me out. And this was about halfway through the month of camp. I received no further contact from my mom, and my father came to pick me up alone and then took me away on a vacation for the weekend. Since then, I have turned 18 years old and I still am with my boyfriend, which is much to my mother's dismay. I'm about to head off to college, and in celebration, I was considering going to Japan. My boyfriend is in the army and is deployed to Korea, and this trip has been a lifelong dream for me, so it's perfect timing. My father supports it, as he still absolutely loves both of us and sees us as everything he wishes he would have been when he was younger. My mom, however, is saying that she's gonna leave my father if he supports us being together or if he lets me go on the trip. In addition, she wants to force me to stay off campus at my future university so that I can stay in a house with her. She has also mentioned wanting to have a room in whatever house I own when I'm out of college and living there the rest of my life. Meanwhile, she continues berating me about how I'm lazy, conspiring against her by wanting simple adult freedoms, and is being very verbally and emotionally awful towards me as always. If I'm having a bad day and have droopy eyes or eye bags, she thinks I'm giving her a look. I get the silent treatment almost every day, and when I'm not getting that, I'm hearing all about her job and how she hates it and how every one of her friends is a deadbeat and all this other stuff. On top of everything, I've caught word that there's a shiny gift to be expected from my boyfriend once I get out of high school. And this is all per my dad dad's arrangement, so I have no idea how to deal with bringing that up to my mom. So honestly, do I sound like the jerk here? My mom and dad do work hard to care for me. They do push me, but I guess it does make me do better regardless of how depressed and anxious I may feel now. I know they both really do love me, but they struggle to show that. My mom is a typical Karen according to my classmates, both via her attitude and her appearance, which mirrors the stereotypical highlighted A-line cut, but even then I still hope that she loves me, because at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this outright. No, of course the original poster is not the jerk. Your mom is awful. She is literally an awful human being. What you've described is so unbelievably nasty, and it's so unbelievably immature. So anytime anyone says anything to her, she just packs her bags and just runs out the door. Like, what kind of mother would do that? Like, that is not a good parent or even a parent to begin with. It's incredibly manipulative, and it's just so incredibly toxic. Like, the original poster walks around on eggshells every waking moment of their life, wondering if what they're gonna say next is gonna set this lady off. And then just like that, she's gonna play the victim and run off for months on end. And your dad is no better in this situation either. He's allowing this behavior to happen and essentially saying, okay, I'm gonna go visit your mom who had to run away because of you. Even though he's not like specifically articulating that, his behavior and actions speak way louder than any words he could possibly say. Now, it's very clear in my opinion that now that you're an adult, your mom still wants to control every aspect of your life. That's the only reason why she's like, okay, for college, you're gonna live with me, instead of you living on campus and living a normal college life. The other evidence of that is her being like, oh, I'm gonna live in the house you live in after college. And I've gotta say this quite honestly, if you do agree to that and give in to her weird demands, this behavior will never stop. This is all just a form of manipulation where when she doesn't get her way, or when she perceives some form of like criticism, she runs off and gives you the silent treatment just to punish you. Because in those few months where she's gone, you're sitting there wondering, oh man, she hates me. She despises everything about me. And it prompts you to have all these terrible thoughts. And that, in my opinion, is one of the worst ways of manipulation, for me at least. When someone gives me the silent treatment and they refuse to have like an adult conversation or some kind of like discussion in some kind of way, that to me is so hurtful, especially when it's someone that I love and care about. If it was a stranger, like who cares? But this is your mom we're talking about. This is someone you thought you could trust and like lean on, but clearly she's not mature enough to have any kind of conversation. Like, I'm amazed that your dad is stuck with her for this long, especially with her abandoning the family anytime someone says anything. So in my opinion, you are definitely not the jerk. Your mom is crazy and you do not deserve any of this treatment. And hopefully with you going away to college, and hopefully you decide to live on campus, you're able to have a lot more distance from your mother and have a better perspective on the way she's actually treating you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled boss tries to demote me and cause me to lose over $9,000 in wages, all because he couldn't hire somebody else to help me out in my job. So I decided to get some revenge by quitting on the spot and finding a better job, leaving my boss in an awful situation that he would have to figure out. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at a jerk like that in my life. Here's what happened. A few years ago, I worked at a janky 2-bit company. The boss thought he was a big shot as well as God's gift simultaneously. He had such a big head, I'm surprised he could get through most doorways. He used to drink beer at his desk for lunch and would often arrive at work very late. He was also an insufferable muscle bro and walked around as if he was carrying rolls of carpet under each arm. This guy seriously was a massive jerk. A few months into my time there, the company starts winning large orders, so he asked me to set up a small-scale production line to increase capacity and tells me the new hire will be situated there. So I design it, I set it up, I test that it all works, and I'm feeling a sense of pride with what I've accomplished. And you know what? It worked like a dream. I was confident that it would work really well for the new hire, and because I'm an engineer by trade, everything was perfect, and only I knew how to fix stuff that went wrong. Nobody else asked how it worked before, making some very detrimental decisions. A while later, there was an issue. He couldn't hire anyone willing to accept such an awful wage and boring work. So the big shot boss had a bright idea to try and demote me and make me governor of my creation. But there was no way I was going to work for $9,000 less. I immediately started job hunting, and I told him if that's your final offer, then regard tomorrow as my final day. Well, he begins to panic that he's committed the company to a $1 million order for shipping in 3 days' time. During his alcohol-fueled panic, he tells me to write up highly detailed technical manuals and processes processes for my replacement. Now, for reference, the production line included some precise handwork, so he got pretty upset when I said I can't do that in one day. He also didn't specify what they should contain, and considering I had no help from him with this project and only endured a lot of complaints, I thought to myself, screw it. If he wants a manual, then that's exactly what he's gonna get. I then created a Word document with convincing titles like Technical Manual, Product Version 2.0, as well as how to do this precise task. Inside the documents, for example, was a picture of the popular Pokemon Pikachu with its face looking very surprised. And I also put Bubbles from Trailer Park Boys looking lost in the document as well. Then below all of that, I put down one line of text. It said, "This manual contains all the information I could find or was given." The file sizes would also indicate a lot of text was contained within thanks to the images. Therefore, at face value, they looked legitimate. So I saved them to my laptop in an equally legitimate looking folder that afternoon, and early the next morning, I came to work to collect my belongings, as well as do some handovers. And when I was doing that, I found that the laptop had vanished. I said my goodbyes to my colleagues, and I looked over to see him looking incensed with a beer in one hand. He was so angry, he didn't even look up from his desk. A friend told me later that the company missed the production deadline, despite him working 12-hour days to catch up. And apparently the client was extremely angry. So I guess the moral of the story is that you shouldn't screw over good people, because in the process, you might just hurt yourself as well. Wow, that boss was completely out of line. Instead of paying somebody more money to try and work for his stupid company, he decides to demote the person who's actually making them the money in the first place. Like, seriously, buddy, you just bit the hand that feeds you. And the original poster has it right. I mean, if I was in his shoes, there's no way I would ever put up with that kind of treatment. Like, this guy might as well have been pulling $9,000 out of the original poster's pocket and throwing it in a bonfire. Like, that is seriously not okay, and I don't blame them for looking for another job, because the way they got treated was completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that it's her fault that our sons now hate and ignore their sister? Because right now she's really upset after what just happened, and I am seriously at such a loss that I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I have 3 kids. We have 2 boys ages 15 and 14, and a girl who's 12 years old. While my wife is a great mom to all of our kids, she always had a special bond with our daughter. I wouldn't frame it as a classic favoritism, but as a little bit more attention and love. The boys were always aware of this and teased their mom with it jokingly, but it was never a problem because she really is a great mom to them too. A few weeks ago, my 14-year-old boy, we'll call him Jim, that's not his real name, as well as our daughter, who we will call Anna, also not her real name, had a big fight and a screaming match. It turned out that Anna took Jim's AirPods to her dance class, forgot them there, and tried to lie about it. My wife intervened and apparently took Anna's side. I wasn't there, so I don't know. My older son, who we will call Alex, also not his real name, intervened on behalf of his brother and told his mom that she is unfair. Well, my wife doubled down and told them to get lost and that Anna is more important. Now, here's the thing. My boys swear that she said that Anna is more important than them, but my wife swears that she said that Anna is more important than a pair of AirPods. Alex exploded and called his mom an awful name. He took his brother and then he left. My wife called them for hours, but they just didn't answer. In the end, she called me and I picked the boys up. Now, the relationship between our boys and their sister has been gone ever since this. They don't talk to her, they ignore her when she approaches them, and they simply won't tolerate her presence. When she enters the room, they leave, and it is heartbreaking to watch. My wife tried to mend things and talk to them, but she gets aggressively ignored as well. Yesterday, my wife had a breakdown and started to cry after we went to bed and said that home life has been an absolute nightmare for the last few weeks. I had little sympathy and I told her to suck it up because it is her fault. Well, she then called me a jerk and cried even more. So honestly, am I the jerk? I know I am technically in the right here, but my wife is already devastated and remorseful. It's now my job to help her mend the relationship between the girls and boys in our home. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so I don't think you're the jerk for being honest and being like, hey, you pretty much did this yourself, but you need to pair that comment with some kind of action. If you just leave it at that and do nothing to try and mend the situation, then in my opinion, that's going to be like an awful scenario. That's going to make all of this get worse and worse, and I just don't think that's going to serve anybody well in the slightest. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think there's a lot of things that need to be worked out, and hopefully for the sake of you and your family, everything can eventually be mended back to the way it was. My husband fully explained to me as to why he cheated on me, and I'm now at such a loss and so devastated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My husband and I are in our 40s, and he cheated on me with a girl in college. She's 21 years old, old, but he started the affair when she was 20 years old about 8 months ago. He's been cheating on me off and on for several years since I started menopause. And you know what? I found out while looking through his phone. He has an active dating app, and he set his age range specifically to 20 to 27 years old. I mean, he was never going to tell me he's cheating on me. I calmly told him that I know he's cheating on me, and he sighed and apologized, while also being relieved that I know because our marriage has been dead since our sons moved out. I asked him why he would cheat on me with someone so much younger than me, and honestly, the love in our marriage has been gone, and I'm more bothered by the fact of his age range being so low. It's just gross because our sons are the same age as these girls my husband is going after. My son's fiance is in their early 20s, and it's gross that my husband would go after her if she was single. Well, my husband told me that they are simply more attractive and that they are carefree. He told me not to take it personally because men will always find younger women attractive and how it's in their biology. He told me that older women can't compete with younger women, and he also said that she's bubbly and she's kind, she's full of life and she's not ugly, she doesn't have wrinkles when she smiles, and she isn't annoying. She isn't boring and she's fun, and she can drop what she's doing right now and come on a spontaneous adventure. And everything he told me just really hurt me so much. Those words kept replaying in my head at 4 in the morning. I can't sleep, and I keep thinking about how lifeless and boring my husband thinks I am. I told him that we're middle-aged, and our bodies aren't meant to be out all night binge drinking and going on random midnight trips. We have responsibilities to think about. He says I'm making up excuses now because my husband has energy, and he's full of life, and we don't have kids in the house anymore, and now I'm just making excuses for myself so that I can remain old and boring. And he might be right, but I'm not 21 anymore, and I don't desire to do 21-year-old things anymore. As for our marriage, he is leaving me. He's not leaving me for this college girl. They aren't even together anymore. He just wants a bachelor lifestyle. The boys know and they love us both, and they just want us to be happy. But I don't know if I can ever be happy. Not because of my husband leaving me, but it's because I can't get over the fact that he is right about me being lifeless over the years. That hurts more than the affair knowing that this is true. I want to feel alive again, but I'm seriously at such a loss and I now don't know what to do. Well, I think we can all confidently say that your soon-to-be ex-husband is a massive jerk. This guy was clearly a deadbeat, and I honestly feel so bad for the original poster. They don't deserve this treatment at all. So honestly, on one end, I'm kind of glad you're away from this jerk, but also I really hope you're able to move past this, because the man you were married to is not a good person, and I really hope with time you're able to move past this and be the best version of yourself you ever could be. Am I the jerk for supposedly ruining my brother-in-law's reputation simply by telling the truth to my friends? Because right now, my brother-in-law and my in-laws are incredibly angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, I want to say that all names in this story are fake. So my in-laws are currently furious with me for hurting my brother-in-law's feelings and reputation with my friend group. Recently, my single brother-in-law, Chris, has been hinting at me to introduce him to a woman, and I've refused. Chris has been single for almost 3 years, and he's been having a really hard time meeting women. He tried flirting with my friend, but she had been cold and non-receptive. And this friend is a woman by the name of Grace. Grace is not interested in him due to his inability to be faithful, and she wasn't physically attracted to him either. He tried to flirtatiously engage with her during a small party my husband and I had last Saturday, and this was a party for my husband who got a long-awaited promotion, so it really was just a small party. But during the party, Grace had grown frustrated with his incessant flirting, and at some point told him in no uncertain terms that she found him physically ugly and that his physical ugliness is only surpassed by his ugliness of his character. She told him this in private, so no other guest heard her scathing review of his personhood. Well, Chris left the party, and the following afternoon, while my husband and I were nursing a wicked hangover, my in-laws, to my surprise, called me up and scolded me for having embarrassed and mistreated Chris. After a few minutes of us shouting back and forth on the phone, I reminded my husband that handling his family was his job. So while my husband argued with his parents, I reviewed our security cameras. And honey, Grace verbally tore him apart. Grace reminded him that he cheated and divorced his late wife by the name of Lily, all while she was battling cancer, and that he then got dumped by his mistress for being a cheater as he continued to cheat on her. Grace told him that he wasn't a man of any significant value other than the few coins he had in the bank, and that there's no way in the world she'd ever entertain his delusions. She also said that the only thing he had going for him was his overbloated job title as an executive director to a third-rate company that will probably collapse in the next 5 years. As a parting gift, she told him to consider some cosmetic work work to improve his haggard appearance, and perhaps to start praying for divine intervention to fix his rotten soul, since there is no way a psychotherapist could ever come close to fixing whatever is wrong with him. Well, my in-laws and Chris feel that I should not have told my friends what Chris did because he's now perceived by my girlfriends as a terrible person. I told them that he was unfortunately a terrible person, and people would have found out what happened between him and his wife anyways. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I not only don't think you're the jerk, but I also think Chris really should not be invited back to anything that you do. Like, this guy does not sound like a good person at all, especially based on the fact that he cheated on his wife who had cancer. Like, this guy sounds like an awful human being, and I just would not want that around my house ever in the slightest. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think you're right that Grace would have found out about Chris's behavior pretty much no matter what. And in my opinion, any problems he has with finding women is literally his own fault and not yours. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and please check out Am I the Genius? Everything that you might be looking for is in the description, so definitely check it out, and we will see you in the next video.